Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if RWBY is watching Naruto memories. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Tenshin-Ta and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Reading remnants of who you were. Wait a minute, is that power bomb? Power bomb on the top turnbuckle. Crash. And into the table. By God. That kid's body is broken in half. Put the women and children to bed. Good God Almighty in heaven, would somebody stop the damn match? Ugh, can't we watch something more civilized than this fake garbage, said none other than Wise Shni herself, and did not hide her displeasure one bit in watching a bunch of so-called sports entertainers duking it out in the ring in live television. Nora, who was at the floor happily eating her pancakes while watching wrestling, immediately frowned at Weiss. She stood up and stared down the Shni Dust Company heiress. Ren sighed as he stood alongside his childhood friend. Hold my pancakes, Ren, Nora spoke with an edged tone. Nora, I think it's best that you don't make a big deal out of this. Ren tried to reason with his partner with no avail. She insulted wrestling, she said as her blue-green eyes narrowed dramatically. She must pay in blood. Whoa there, Nora, hold your hammer, said none other than the beautiful young Xiao Long as she tried to defuse the situation between the inevitable catfight between them. Remember, you were invited, along with your team, to hang out and play some games after the whole breach mess a week ago, and besides, these are reruns that some of us already seen. Ever since the breach incident, all the students had to remain in Beacon and stay in their dorms. They could only get out if they were attending classes or needed to go to the bathroom. Over time, students were filing complaints for not having enough freedom, which General Ironwood conceded to their demands and allowed them to hang out with other friends in their dorms and stretch around the school campus yard, as long as they didn't mind security accompanying them. Team RWBY invited Team JNPR into their dorm to watch some movies and play some games due to the partial boredom they were suffering, except Blake, as she kept herself entertained with her new books that she pre-ordered from her scroll, young nerd. They all settled in and made themselves comfortable. Ruby was in floor and lay flat on her stomach as she watched the match between Epic King and Rock Lasher. John was happily sitting on the edge of the couch that they brought in and read to the latest issue of X-Ray and Vav, which he shared the comic's contents with his partner, Pira, who was giddy at being close to him. While the rest were now having situation. Jan has a point, Nora. We can watch it next time in our room, Pira said as she got up from the couch and consoled her friend. Nora grumbled a bit before she conceded. Her eyes locked with Weiss's, sending her message that this wasn't over. Weiss' response was gleefully changing the channel. I'ma kill her, Nora said as she was immediately held back by the tall and beautiful redhead, chuckling awkwardly at her small friend behavior. Last time on Loving Truth and Blurring, Jan said as she snatched the control and changed the channel. Hey! Weiss glared at her friend. This is a good show. And you are not in charge of the remote. Neither are you, Jan countered smoothly, a small Cheshire grin present, and your show also sucks. The dialogue in this show is dull and has way too many cheesy pickup lines that wouldn't even work in real life. I rather watch wrestling than Loving Truth and Compassion, Nora added her comment, much to Weiss' displeasure. But Weiss has a good point. You're not in charge of the remote either, Yang, Blake voiced out, making herself present in the conversation. Thank you, Weiss smirked triumphantly. I'm not finished, Blake pointed out as she continued where Weiss interrupted her. We should vote on watching Weiss' show. All in favor, raise your hand. No one had raised their hand. Weiss gave a betrayed look before she sat down at the couch with the rest of her squad and conceded her defeat as she has sat next to Pira. So, anyone has any show recommendations other than wrestling? Yang asked her friends. Her response was met with shrugs. Yang sighed. Then I guess we'll just have to see what's on these days. She clicked the control. Instead of changing the channel, the screen turned off. What did you do? Weiss said, quick to jump in accusation. Nothing, Yang quickly defended herself as she tried to turn on the TV. I tried to change the channel, but it turned off by itself. Maybe it's just a glitch. Happens sometimes, John added as he put his comic away. Well, if it was John, then the TV would turn back on if I tried to press the power button. But nothing is happening, Yang said as she made her frustration clear as she pressed the power button repeatedly but with no results, much to her dismay. Gimme that, Weiss said as she took the remote back and pressed the button herself. To Yang's surprise, the TV turned on. Before Weiss could brag, they noticed that screen was in static. Many of the members looked awkwardly before the screen soon dyed black and a deep husky voice was then soon heard. Remnants of who you were, you should be watching. But we're already watching, Nora said, pointing out what she thought was the obvious. Nora, it's probably just a slogan, Ren reasoned until the TV then, somehow, responded. Well, don't go anywhere. Our TV is possessed, Ruby said in fright as she quickly latched behind her big sister. Nora, for some reason, was not bothered by the talking TV unlike her friends as she responded. But I want to get a snack. The TV quickly responded, and no, don't. Stay here with me. Stop talking like that, talk normally. Ruby complained loudly behind Yang, afraid at the TV's creeper voice. No, they pay me to talk like this. Tenshin-Ji's going for a new angle sexy. Well, it is working, Nora informed with a smile as the rest of the members gave her bewildered and odd glances which she noticed. What? The rest of Team JNPR and Team RWBY looked away awkwardly until Ruby noticed. Look guys, I think the show is starting. All the members got quiet and comfortable in their seats as the show then started. Chapter 1, Waking Up. Ugh, the title sucks, Nora grumbled. Waking up sucked. Most of the immature huntsmen and huntswomen in training agreed with that. When he woke up it was dark, and what little he could see made him nervous. Sitting high above within a starless black sky was a ball of light, big and round and shattered, broken more like. It was the moon, or what was left of it, remnants of its once whole body drifting off to who knows where within the inky darkness that spanned forever. He didn't remember the moon being like that. In fact, he didn't remember much at all. An amnesiac protagonist? Huh, Blake commented as it's been a long time since she read a story about that specific trope. Oh, if that's true then I wonder what his past is going to be, Ruby said excitedly. I bet he comes from an alien race that will devour our planet by using a giant killer tree. Nora said in glee as the rest looked at her weirdly. Please ignore her, Ren said as looked away in shame from his childhood friend's bizarre behavior. Where am I? You're in Remnant, Star Traveler, Nora quipped while Ren grumbled. The others just laughed at the joke. What he could remember was not very much, his own name, Naruto Uzumaki, and a few other trivial things. He could remember faces too, but no names, and when the faces spoke, no words came out. His name is Naruto. Never heard a name like that before, Blake repeated. I wonder if his name alludes to something. Ren, who held similar styles of name with Naruto, enlightened Blake. If I remember correctly, I think his name means Maelstrom. Really? His name has a pretty cool meaning, John pointed out, while the rest agreed. In legends, Maelstrom were thought to be powerful forces of natures in many tales of the old. Blake even read a short story of it. She wondered if this Naruto person lived up to his name. His fingernails dug at the earth underneath him as Naruto tried to sit up, and found that in itself was a chore. His chest ached, and there was an annoying tingle running up and down his right arm that made him feel even weaker. Come to think of it, sitting upright was proving to be more of a chore than he'd previously thought. His left side was easy to support, his right, however, was where the issue lay. Wonder what's wrong with it, Yang said as she and the rest of the crew finally saw the face of the protagonist. Everyone noted that he was quite young, probably 10 or 11. Blonde, weird-looking whisker mark like scars, blue eyes, and all around a cute-looking kid. Blake wondered if he was a faunus, but admitted she hadn't seen marks like those on any faunus before. The cat-eared faunus wondered if this was a new discovered trait. Scientists would be up all night if they discovered the kid first, trying to figure their species out on what made their species tick. Yang admitted she would like to pinch his cheeks. He looked easy to tease. I hope he's all right, Pira said in concern as she noticed Naruto looking pretty banged up. He looks like he got run over by a pickup truck, Nora said as she noted the injuries. I think that's an over-exaggerating, Nora, Ren said as her friend shrugged. Slowly, bright blue eyes moved to examine the limb only to find a rather horrid sight. He no longer had a right arm. Everything from his forearm down was gone, bits of blood leaking out of the grisly wound. The room felt silent. Oh God. Until it broke at Yang's comment. That summed up everyone's reaction. And for some reason Yang pretty much knew that she felt the most uncomfortable in the group at seeing Naruto's lost limb. What the hell? From what little he could remember, Naruto was absolutely sure he was the proud owner of 2 arms. Now, he only had the one. How did he lose it? Pira questioned as she watched Naruto stump. A fight? Maybe, John added his theory. If that's true, then it must have been really personal to get that deep into the violence, Blake said as she continued to watch. Carefully, he brought himself up to a sitting position, wincing all the while, and then let out a long sigh. He was in the woods, which was great, just great. Injured and alone in unfamiliar territory with no clue as to how to get home or even where home was. Really spectacular at that. At least his arm didn't hurt. The tingling was all he could feel at this point. It was his sore and exhausted body that gave him the urge to drop like a bag of potatoes. It felt like some huge creature had stepped on him a dozen times over. Still, his body wasn't bleeding as badly as his trunk of an arm. Ripping away a piece of his tattered orange jacket, Naruto wrapped his wound and hoped for the best before clumsily standing. Hopefully he makes it out okay, Pira said. I need to find a way out of here, he mumbled before dragging himself out of the clearing and into the pitch-black woods ahead. He walked and stumbled and fell, took short minute-long breaks, and leaned against the impressively sized trees to recover, and then walked some more. And with each step he took, with every second that passed, Naruto felt his energy return to him, until he was no longer stumbling like a drunk. Soon, he was running, his injured arm held close to his breast and his left flailing freely behind him. The more he ran, however, the more he noticed them, and they him. Black creatures shaped like massive animals with bone-white appendages sticking out of their shadowy skin and strange symbols etched onto their bodies. More and more of them began to follow him, stalking his every move. Their beady red eyes glowing in the night and filling him with a sense of dread. So far he counted 9 of them in total. What were they? What drew them? Was it his blood? It's the Grim, Ruby spoke as she noted the obvious. I don't think I can watch this any longer, Pira said with sadness. She was no stranger on how this might end for the blonde. The rest agreed, except Nora. Stop being a bunch of babies, he's the protagonist, guys, Nora noted to everyone. He's got plot armor, and he's not bleeding as bad as he should be either. He'll be fine. Blake blinked at that, along with the rest. Nora wasn't exactly wrong. With that, they continued to watch. None of this makes any sense. A light at the end of the tunnel. That's exactly what he saw in his moment of despair, and all too eagerly he rushed through the bundle of vines and branches. What awaited him on the other side was an even larger clearing than the one he'd woken up in. A massive pond, or river, he wasn't quite sure, seemingly glowing in the light of the broken moon. It was a beautiful sight, and it would also prove to be his downfall. There was nowhere he could run or hide now. Naruto had the sense to roll out of the way, crying out in pain when his left shoulder hit the ground. A black wolf flung itself at him from behind, and he moved almost on instinct. It was fast, but it still felt slow in his mind's eye. He didn't have time to think about it though, as the rest of the pack quickly followed. That was a good dodge, Pyrrha said as she noted the perfect timing in him rolling out. What I told you, Nora motioned with her hand. The plot armor is strong in this one. He caught himself mid-fall and seamlessly fell into another run. His chest burnt, and he was tired, but he had to keep running. A loud, ear-wrenching shriek from above told him to duck, and seconds later birds swooped down, their claws barely grazing his head. Then from seemingly out of nowhere, a shadow burst from his right side and slammed into him. Naruto screamed and fell, fresh blood spilling from what used to be his elbow and splattering all over his torn orange pants. The blonde arched his back and gripped his shoulder with his left hand, screaming all the while as the tingling jumped to a full-on fire within seconds. Team RWBY and JNPR winced at seeing the blonde in agony. They couldn't imagine the pain that he was going through. Naruto had no time to consider his situation as a tail had wrapped itself around his leg, and with a single flick tossed him with enough force to snap the tree he'd been unfortunate enough to make contact with. He spat out a glob of blood, and this time, he couldn't even manage a scream. He hit the ground seconds later and only lay there, twitching and vomiting his own blood, all the while the snarls and yelps and screeches grew closer and closer. Most of the members looked away as they saw Naruto's vomit blood. Ruby couldn't see any more due to Yang covering her eyes. Yang, please, I'm 15, Ruby pleaded. Nope, this is too dark for you to see right now. You can look until I say so, Yang replied, not budging her hands one bit from her little sister's innocent eyes. Damn you, if I could fight back I'd slaughter you all. He wheezed the words out and coughed up another bit of blood at the end before he passed out. At least he won't feel it, Weiss finally spoke. I don't think that will make a difference, Blake said. Quiet you two, there's still more, Nora pointed out as she continued watching. Jonathan Sunflower was a simple man. Sunflower, ha! Nora laughed at her heart's content until Rin elbowed her. Be respectful, Nora. Nora replied with a raspberry. He has a flower-themed last name like Ruby, Weiss mentioned. That's right, best buddy, Ruby said cheerfully. Weiss grumbled at that comment. He loved his family, he loved his people, and he loved his village. They were his livelihood, his reason for waking up every morning and starting the day. As the middle-aged man made his usual rounds through the foggy streets, waving at the residents and stroking his goatee all the while, he came upon an unusual sight. In the far distance at the very edge of the town was a figure. His first instinct was to say it was the Grim, but the shadow was a little too small. Jonathan had never seen a Grim shorter than the average man. Any further thoughts were cut off by the figure slamming face first into the ground. Jonathan was at his side in an instant, rolling the orange-clad figure over to take a good look at his face only to realize it was a child, one who looked no older than his own. Beady brown eyes looked the blonde up and down, taking note of the dried blood, torn fabric, and missing arm. The poor boy looked to be at death's very door, waiting for his host to open up and let him inside. If he didn't do something soon he would probably. He's alive? How? Pyrrha asked bewilderedly. Plot armor, that's how, Nora quickly answered. That isn't even a proper answer, Weiss argued as she crossed her arms. Let's just see if there's a good explanation. Nora shrugged, she still thought it was plot armor. Hey, Mr. Jonathan's eyes grew twice their size. Heavens, the boy could speak. Mr. Please, a single hand came up and gripped his dusty brown shirt, pulling Jonathan close. Please feed me, I am starving. Feed me, human, or I'll eat your soul, Nora exclaimed dramatically as the rest snickered a bit in her antics. Then, he promptly passed out again. Jonathan wasted no time, scooping the boy up into his arms and rushing him over to the local healer, all the while ignoring the looks on his citizens' faces as he sped by. Stranger or not, this was still just a boy, and in spite of the many questions and doubts running through his head, Jonathan knew what he had to do. These were dark times they were living in. After all, humanity had to stick together. That is very kind of him, Pyrrha said. It made her smile when other people acted kind to one another. Everyone nodded at that. Child, you should slow down or you'll choke. Naruto didn't listen. He was too preoccupied stuffing his face full of fish and rice. Ugh, doesn't this kid know manners? Weiss looked aghast at the pace the blonde chowed down on his food. What's wrong with his table manners? Nora asked, seeing nothing wrong at the way he ate his food. Weiss scoffed, not bothering to explain to her guests, leading Nora to be more confused. The old woman who nursed his wounds and fed him sighed. Where exactly did you say you were from again? Don't remember, he exclaimed while slamming his third plate down and grinning. Thank you very much for the food. Weiss rose a brow at seeing the character. Naruto's rather odd cheerfulness was truly optimistic. He doesn't seem that bothered in not knowing where he comes from. Maybe he's hiding it, Blake mused. She read many stories where characters like him hid their worries by putting up a cheerful facade. Well, being bothered about it won't get him anywhere, Jan pointed out. He'll dwell on his origins when he wants to, and that makes it all the more exciting. I wonder if his past has some ninjas in it. Oh. Or maybe he's a ninja. Ruby shouted in glee. That sounded awesome. You're ridiculous, Weiss said unapologetically. Ninjas? Give me a break, Ruby. Ruby frowned as she pouted cutely. Ninjas sounded awesome to her, and she wasn't ridiculous. She managed a weak smile. At least he was polite. Think nothing of it. You are, after all, a guest. Susan, could you give us a moment? Jonathan asked. Giving him a look, Susan sighed again, and then nodded before doing as he asked. When the door behind him shut, Jonathan regarded the boy. Now then, Naruto, was it? At the blonde's enthusiastic nod he continued, well then, do you mind answering a few questions? Sure. Naruto chirped while reaching for his fourth. Seriously? Weiss let an abysmal expression grace her features at seeing the blonde going for his fourth bowl. Hey, a guy gotta eat what he's gotta eat, Nora said as she patted her swollen belly after devouring several stacks of pancakes, much to Ren's confused shock. He needs to eat, Weiss. He did lose an arm, Pyrrha reasoned. That made Weiss back off. She hadn't given it much thought about the missing limb. He probably needed the energy. Unbelievable. Very good. Tell me, do you remember your full name? It's Naruto Uzumaki. The man nodded. Good, and your age? 13, I think. He's a bit too short to be 13, John noted at the young blonde's 4 feet and 10-inch stature. Maybe he's a late bloomer, Ruby quickly spoke, sounding defensive and rather insecure in the way she answered. Blunt as ever, Weiss spoke her thoughts. Or maybe he's just that short. Ruby grumbled at Weiss' uncalled answer. Jonathan pursed his lips at that, his eyes wandering over to the newly bandaged stump. And what about where you're from? Or how you came to be here? Do you remember any of that? Asking all the right questions, Jonathan, Nora said as film noir music played in the background. Who is Naruto? A ninja, an alien, or maybe something more? There are so many questions, yet no answer. Team members of JNPR and RWBY looked at Nora oddly as she got up and looked towards the window. Weiss summed up the scene perfectly as she twirled her finger close to her head, making the loopy head gesture. Many agreed while Pyrrha and Ren debated on that. Ren sighed. Nora, sit down and let's finish watching the show. Okay. Naruto thought about it for a moment, and then shook his head. No, I can't remember much. All I know is my own name, and that I woke up in the woods last night. And it's a miracle that you're alive, Pyrrha said as others agreed. Jonathan hummed aloud. This is strange. He moved to the chair near the blonde's bed and took a seat. The woods are dangerous, and they're even worse at night. Do you think you could? Oh! But how silly of me! I've yet to introduce myself. I am Jonathan Sunflower, the mayor of this humble village. It is a pleasure to meet you, Naruto. He extended a hand and waited for the blonde to take it, only to realize it was his left, and that Naruto didn't have a right. My apologies, It's okay, the boy interrupted. I'm still getting used to it myself. Naruto grinned again and Jonathan found himself mimicking the action. If anything, the boy was bright. Weiss blinked. The boy was rather positive despite his lost limb. Are you sure he's putting a facade, Blake? I'm not sure, Blake answered in just as much surprise as Weiss. Either way, my apologies. As I was saying, do you think you could recall last night's events for me? The blonde nodded once and began his tale. He spoke of waking up wounded, of being attacked and almost killed by the monsters, of falling unconscious with wounds that would have killed any other man, and then waking up as if it were all just a bad dream, perfectly healed. All the while Jonathan fought back a growing sense of dread at Naruto's every word. The boy spoke of the Grimm, and they were a very real and dangerous thing. One alone was a death sentence, let alone 9. Whatever that feeling was last night wasn't just a figment of his imagination. And that's that. I woke up and made my way over here, but during the way all of my adrenaline wore off and I felt super tired and super hungry. Naruto finished his recollection of last night's events. I can see that, Jonathan said, smiling as he motioned to the numerous stacks of plates and bowls. The blonde had the decency to look embarrassed. It's no trouble, of course, so don't feel bad. We are happy to know we could help. Although, what you've just told me is rather worrisome. Susan said you took quite the blow to the head by all the blood, but there was no actual wound. I'm sure you have amnesia, but I don't know how bad. Perhaps we can jolt your memory with words. The man trailed off, practically rambling to himself by the end of it while simultaneously stroking his goatee. Yes, I'm sure this might work. Tell me, Naruto, do you remember the name of those monsters from last night? The blonde made a face and then shook his head. Nope, the Grimm. The what? Many of the members, except Nora, who was looking rather giddy, were now looking at Naruto oddly. They noted that his confusion wasn't an act. The Grimm, my boy, that is what they are called. Monsters that are attracted to anger and hate, jealousy and fear, and all negative feelings that prey on humanity. The Grimm. He loomed over the blonde and spread his fingers like they were claws. Naruto could only deadpan in response. Still not ringing any bells here, old man. Wow, his amnesia must be very bad if he doesn't know about Grimm. John spoke. Maybe he's an alien, Nora added with smile. Doubt it, John replied quickly. Nora laughed. If I'm right then your lien is mine. You're on. If you put up yours, the leader of Team JNPR took the challenge. Deal, the wielder of Manghoud said as she flashed her lien for John to see. Sucker. Ren and Pyrrha sighed at this. Gah! The nerve of you, child. I am not that old. Jonathan scowled. Sorry. By now he was fighting back a fit of giggles. The man wasn't very inclined to believe him. Withholding a sigh, Jonathan crossed his arms and leaned back into his chair, taking a moment to think. Tell me, Naruto, do you know of Remnant? Of Sanus? Do you remember any of this? Naruto shook his head again, this time with a frown tugging the corners of his lips down. He seemed genuinely frustrated. The boy wasn't faking it, that was for sure. I find that weird, Yan said to the group. There's no way he can't forget something as important as the Grim. You're right, it is concerning. Pyrrha agreed with the dual-ranged shot gauntlets wielder. Makes him a bit interesting, Blake added her thoughts. Well, Blake, I guess you aren't wrong, Weiss said as the blonde boy piqued her curiosity. Who is he exactly? Makes it exciting, Ruby quipped with a smile. Just how hard did you hit your head? The blonde shrugged. Who knows, maybe I fell out of the sky. He joked. The group laughed. The frown gone as quickly as it came. Then it died. In that instant, a massive headache split his skull in half. The blonde gripped his head, pulling at his hairs, and hunched over on the bed while fighting back a scream. White flashes, a lot pain, and then split-second images that danced before his tightly shut eyes. Everything was blue and he could feel the wind all around him, and he was falling, and falling, and falling for what felt like an eternity. The last thing he could really remember was thinking how nice it felt to fly. Then everything went dark, he could see or feel no more. The group looked worried at Naruto's state. His sudden mood swing of emotions took them by surprise, seeing his flashback through his eyes. Noting the considerable height on how high he was up in the sky, no one spoke as they continued to watch the event unfold. When the headache finally went away, Naruto blinked and whispered 2 words. Holy shit. Language. Pyrrha frowned at young Naruto's colorful vocabulary, breaking the silence of the group. Give him the soap to wash his dirty mouth, Pyrrha. Ruby cheered as Pyrrha agreed. She will wash that mouth clean. Yan chuckled at the scene while the rest gave small smiles at the red-headed duo's antics. Jonathan was about ready to scold the blonde for his use of language when he turned wide-eyed eyes to him and spoke. I actually fell out of the sky. How? Weiss questioned in disbelief as much as everyone. Even if he did fell, there's no way he could have survived the fall. But he did, Ruby said to Weiss. I know, Ruby, it's just weird that his skull hadn't split from the fall, Weiss said in annoyance. He was bleeding from the back of his head but there was no wound, Blake keenly remembered from Jonathan's words. Aura can heal you, but wounds like those would have needed medical attention, Pyrrha voiced in. But he's alright, maybe Naruto has a semblance that can heal him. A healing factor if I may add. John shared his theory with the rest of his friend. Many found the theory plausible. It sure did explain why he didn't die from his injuries. Maybe he's an alien with mystical ninja powers, Nora added her own theory. Come on, Nora. Nora, please. Please stop embarrassing me. Let's be realistic here. Would you please cut it out? I think that sounds cool. Let's not get crazy about this, little sis. Hearing the complaints, Nora grumbled, You guys suck, I'm only joking. Ruby was disappointed to hear that while the rest sighed. Hey look, the screen went back to static, Nora pointed out as the rest noticed. Soon the screen died to black once again. Many were expecting to hear the creepy narrator voice but instead to their surprise a name they never heard before popped up in bold letters. Story by Rian. Song. KY0UMI/C-DANIELART, Amnesia Zoetrope, English. A soothing female's voice began to sing, catching many off guard. Like fragments of a dream fallen apart, the members of Team RWBY and JNPR soon saw Naruto appear in the background of the music. His back only shone before them. I've lost final pieces of my fragile heart. Then suddenly a flicker of ethereal blue flames began to emerge from Naruto's body slowly. I don't know how I'll find myself but still I have to try. The azure flames began to grow and flickered more violently, engulfing Naruto in the process. Oddly he did not seem harmed or in pain, till I reached the end of this rainbow-colored sky. Naruto turned his head back, his blue eyes shining with determination as the blue flames soon engulfed the screen, leaving a white screen. Romance of who you are, running of a flame that's fading. Naruto stood in the center of blank field, as his aura-like flames faded away. He looked up and closed his eyes in thought, trapped inside of distant daydream. Team RWBY appeared, their weapons aimed and ready as they posed, highlighting them in different angles. On a road that is ever-changing, Team JNPR appears in formation, posing next to Team RWBY. Still I know I must go. Ruby broke from her formation as she saw a crow flew in the distance of the sky. Crow Branwen appeared and smiled as he attacked with his weapon, changing the scene in process. Now I'm feeling my heart beat faster. Naruto memories flashed of him fighting a person with a white mask. Their battle intense and heavy as the blood stained on the floor, pushing forward and pulling backward. The scene changed of Naruto fighting another opponent, a beast of some kind. Large and made of sand, he ran fearlessly into the eye of the storm, headbutting a red-haired kid, their blood dripping freely. Take control and save my sorry soul. Naruto's dream sequence was interrupted as a large horde of Grimm then surrounded him. He growled as he was about to fight, but Team RWBY and JNPR dropped from the skies and pushed them away, coming to his aid. And make me whole. Naruto smiled as joined his friends in the fray. They soon made work of the grim. Silence my fear. Roman Torchwick appeared with a dust crystal at hand with members of the White Fang at his side. Take me from here. Naruto looked at Team RWBY and JNPR, sharing the same idea. They soon attacked him and his army. The scene faded out and changed. As I slowly pieced together everything I've seen, Naruto stood in front of Beacon Academy and made eye contact with Ojban, Glinda standing at his side. In this never-ending dream, Naruto closed his eyes and turned his back and walked away, passing Team RWBY and JNPR. I am trying to break free. He caught Cinder walk slowly past him. She smiled at him as she walked away with her teammates behind. From this carousel of, Naruto looked back to see Cinder, but he was once again back in the blank field. He looked up and saw his memories. Memories that aren't even really what they seem. His memories flashed in shattered mirror fragments. Seeing himself in an intense battle with dark-haired kid that wielded lightning at his hand, he frowned at the image, his eye color starting to change, spinning fast and around me. He found himself clutching his head in pain as his ethereal blue flames burst from his body, and then soon died into red and dark sinister colors. Until I find the one that finally sets me free. Naruto's features soon took a sudden change into a more feral appearance even by fauna standards. He looked up to his memories with his bright red eyes and gave a roaring howl as silhouette of a demonic beast appeared behind him, roaring alongside him. Everyone was speechless as the song ended. They had so many questions but couldn't answer any of them. Ruby was the most silent of the all, never moving from her spot. After processing at what she had witnessed, Ruby's face was attacked with a multitude of emotions, and the only way she could express it was through a loud and piercing squeak. Everyone around her soon covered their ears. Reading remnants of who you were. How long has she been at it? Weiss asked her friends as they continued to observe Ruby, still squealing her heart out. Yang's keeping count, Blake informed to the Schneers. 49, 50, 51, 52, 5. Yang's count halted after Ruby immediately stopped. Damn, so close to a new record. Finally, some quiet. Weiss' moment of silence was soon disturbed as Ruby took a deep breath and began to squeal once again. Oh, come on. Wow, Ruby's got lungs, doesn't she? John's eyes narrowed as he finished his comment. That came out wrong. 4, 5, 6. Yang resumed her count as the rest of the members waited until Ruby finished her orgasm of joy, listening to music to drown out the noise. After another 52 seconds passed, Ruby soon officially stopped her girlish squeak. No record was broken, much to Yang's disappointment. The rest were weary of Ruby, believing that she would start again. Their worries were alleviated as Ruby got up and began to speak. That was awesome, Ruby said excitedly. That intro made him look so cool. And for some reason we were there. We were like, Hawa. Whicha. Yang snickered at seeing her sister being all excited about seeing the intro before she finally realized. Wait. We were there, how? The huntresses and huntsmen in training soon were hit with the realization of Yang's question. Holy shit, she's right. John was the first to curse, much to Pira's disapproval. How the hell are we even there? Shit, I don't remember doing any of that. John, language? Pira pleaded to her leader. Not now, Pira. John immediately dismissed, disheartening the poor invincible girl's heart. We got to get to the bottom of this. Looks like we have a mystery in our hands, gang. Nora raised her index finger in the air, smiling triumphantly. How? We got no clues to speak of, Blake observed. John scoffed. The TV is our clue, Blake. Duh, Nora added to John's sentence, both motioning the TV, which is back to the static screen. The catered faunus rebutted. Also, we can't prove anything since we never even recorded it. She has a point, Ruby said, standing next John. John grumbled under his breath. Even though we can't prove anything, I do find it concerning that we were there standing with Naruto. Lyron spoke his concerns to the rest of the group. I noticed he looked older in the intro, Weiss pointed out, which many murmured in agreement. Yeah, he looked around 16 or 17 if I could tell, Young said as she remembered Naruto's facial features. Now that I mention it, he looks kind of hot. Blake gave a dry stare to her partner, while Ruby blanched and Weiss rolled her eyes. Seeing their negative response, Young flippantly replied, God, can I check a guy out? Ruby saw her point, but she still found it gross every time Young tried to string her along into her boy talk. Blake and Weiss detracted their looks. They were being a bit hypocritical given that they checked their prospective kind of guys, Sun and Neptune. Well, Naruto's good looks aside, the question still remains. Why are we there? Pira questioned, getting everyone back to the topic. Being the comic buff that John was, he shared a plausible theory to his friends. If I go by comic book settings, I think this might be an alternate universe or an elseworld of sorts. To put it simply, we're looking at another version of us but in a different world. Meared, Nora. Pira frowned at her teammate's disrespectful comment. Behave, Ren said as he sprayed her with a water bottle. Gah! Nora hissed, her weakness. How did he know? Team RWBY ignored Nora and the self-proclaimed cat ninja of the team decided to get conversation back on track. John may be right, Blake the first to respond to his theory. We saw some very familiar faces like Professor Ojban and Glinda, General Ironwood, and even those students from Haven that Ruby mentioned. There's even an unknown person that we don't know. Oh, that's our Uncle Crow, Yang informed to everyone. Blake blinked, surprised to hear the information along with the rest. Really, didn't you told me he had a scythe? Then it was Ruby's turn to explain. Uncle Crow likes to play around when he fights. He only busts out the scythe form when he's serious. I see, Blake said, absorbing that piece of knowledge. Well, I guess we might meet him sooner there than here. I'm curious to know how we may act in this world. There are many possibilities that may be different from ourselves. That sounds really cool. If what you say is true, I wonder if I'm a robot in this world, Ruby said, her body failing to hide her excitement. Okay sis, calm your horses. Yang put her hand down on her sister's shoulder to stop her from vibrating. But Ruby's eyes got teary-eyed as she looked over sister. Well, our leader's childishness aside, Weiss got the room as everyone now paid attention to her. John's theory may sound plausible, but we need to prove it. And how do you propose that? Blake asked, ever the skeptic. Easy, Weiss replied coolly with an insufferable grin. Everyone in the room saw Weiss walk to the TV, which was still locked in static. Her next action caught everyone by surprise. Mr. Creepy Narrator Voice, could you please answer my question? The static immediately disappeared as the screen went pitch black. Yes sure, go ahead. Is John's theory correct? Weiss asked, much to everyone's disbelief. Johnny Boy is right, and so is Blake's. This is an alternate universe, and even despite these people looking like you, their personalities could be and might be a little bit different from yours in their own way. Everyone absorbed the information that Mr. Creepy Narrator Voice had shared to them. Everyone was now in deep thought, wondering what might have changed from them or so. Yang was the first to speak. Well, I hope I'm still cool. Many agreed to Yang's comment. Well now, since all of you asked me a question, I hope you don't mind me if I asked for one. Weiss contemplated with the group and replied, it seems fair for you to ask, go ahead. Do you want to see more? This question took many by surprise as they all then looked at each other. Can you give us a moment please? Take your time. And that they did. After 3 minutes of decision, Weiss rose from the couch to give out the unanimous decision. We are curious enough to know more, Weiss replied. With that, a familiar music started playing in the background. Ruby let out a squeal as she watched the intro all over again. Many had to agree with Ruby's earlier comments, they did look cool. Blake frowned at the end as she saw Naruto take an almost faunus-like transformation, but it was too bestial and feral for Naruto to be one. It bothered the cat fauna somewhat about his appearance. His nails turned into white claws, his canines turned to fangs, his whiskers marks became more pronounced, hair more wild and shaggier, and his blue eyes became red and his pupils dilated into slits. Naruto was more bestial than any faunus could ever be, which further bothered Blake. It left her with so many questions on who he was. Other members were more focused on Naruto's past memories than to pay close attention to the end of the intro. Chapter 2, Meeting a Crow. Ruby and Yang shifted a little, trying to hide their smiles. They could have told the group, but no one likes spoilers. With that they kept quiet. The town of Seafoam, a small, and Naruto used that term loosely, seaside settlement made famous its port, their salty alcoholic drinks, and the vibrant mixed people, the Little Vale they called it. From all over Sanus, from the true kingdom of Vale to the kingdom of Vacuo, people came to this place to drink and gamble, among other things. Seafoam was also rather infamous for its absurd criminal rate. The town was a safe haven for pirates, mercenaries, smugglers, you name it. So why is he wandering there? Weiss disapproved of Naruto's poor choice of setting location. That isn't a place he should be in the first place. Pyrrha agreed with the heiress. The rest chose not comment as they decided to keep on watching, hopefully finding a good explanation of Naruto's change of location as well as choice. Which was why he was here. Weiss frowned increased further. Standing in front of a cracked door, a deadpan expression on his face as he listened in to the sounds of laughing and fighting from the rowdy occupants inside. A whole year of soul-searching and aimless wandering trying to figure out who he was, and this is where it had led him. To the Seaweed Tavern, to meet some strange dude promising to help him out, who also might, or might not be planning on robbing him. It's obvious he's trying to rob you, Weiss said. If this person really wanted to help, he would have met you in a much more comfortable environment. I don't think that would have changed much, Yang replied. He would still get robbed even if the tavern was in the city, or any location in general. Weiss could see that Yang had some truth, but she still disapproved of it. The 14-year-old sighed. I'm going to regret this. Who would have guessed? Weiss said with dry sarcasm. Be easy on him, Weiss, Pyrrha asked to the member of RWBY. Humph. Weiss folded her arms as she kept quiet as the show continued. He mumbled to himself. Reaching up, the blonde tugged at the orange scarf he'd taken to wearing and pulled it up around his face. The marks on his cheeks always got him into trouble in places like these, where alcohol bolstered a man's confidence, and urged them to say distasteful things. Ugh, Blake's brow furrowed in disdain after hearing that. Assholes. Her friends shared Blake's sentiment as they too frowned. These people's attitudes did not surprise Weiss one bit. She expected this sort of behavior from lowlifes like them. Taking a deep breath, Naruto steeled himself, and then pushed the cracked door open. Like one of those old Western movies people were so fond of, all eyes turned to him. Even the heavy music stopped, leaving an awkward silence in its place. John whistled an old Western theme as Nora soon followed his lead. I'm looking for a man, a dead man, Nora said in her best Clot Westwood impression. Yeah, girl. Yang cheered on her impression, while some laughed at Nora's antic. He shuffled uncomfortably at all the eyes and scratched at the back of his head. Hey? Nora, John, Ruby and Yang jeered in unison. The rest stood quiet, but they did share their disappointment in Naruto's impression in the tavern. Somehow that worked. The drunken men and women raised their glasses high at his rather meek hello and huzzat before chugging like there was no tomorrow. The music came back on, and no one spared him a second glance unless he looked their way first. How typical, Weiss criticized. Cool. Naruto grinned underneath his makeshift mask and strode right in, all the while searching for his particular stranger. He waved at a table and they all waved back, and then proceeded to drink some more. These people are all right. They're probably just trying to fool you, Weiss commented on the drunkard's behaviors. But they seem pretty all right, Nora retorted. No comments from you, Rin intervened as everyone soon then continued to watch. What can I get you, boy? No alcohol, of course. This place still has an image to keep up after all. The bartender was a sharply dressed man in comparison to his customers, with fine features and warm eyes. Weiss' opinion of the tavern admittedly started to soften after the barman said that. See? Nora smiled triumphantly. Weiss' eyes glowered but conceded nonetheless. She would give her this victory. Pop, please, Naruto said, taking a seat on a nearby stool, his rather short legs dangling. Guess he didn't do much growing over the year, huh? John said as he observed. Pyrrha frowned. He seems like a person who would skip out on his vegetables. Ruby blanched when Pyrrha mentioned those wretched greens. Coming right up. The man turned around and grabbed a cup and with practiced ease he tossed it, the glass landing safely underneath the soda machine. Smirking in satisfaction with the machine started to fill the cup a half-second later. Nice, Nora complimented, while the rest of her friends admired the barman's technique. Naruto grinned. Cool trick, old man. Ha! Thank you. So tell me, kid, what brings you to this side of Seafoam? There are friendlier areas for you to wander into, you know. And my name isn't old man, by the way. My name is Apricot. He grabbed the now full cup and slid it over to where the grinning blonde sat. My name's Naruto. And I'm not actually lost. I'm meeting someone here, who may or not be trying to rob you, Weiss reminded. You know he can't hear you, right? Ruby informed, missing the Shnee's sarcasm. Of course, I know that you dolt, Weiss said as she swatted Ruby's head lightly. Ruby whimpered as she clutched her head. Weiss is a meanie. Apricot made a face. Naruto? What a strange name. Yep, the viewers agreed with Apricot except Nora, who took a sip from her pop. The blonde in question scowled. He'd heard that one plenty of times by now. And Apricot is any better? He grumbled. He got him there, Nora said as she waved her drink loosely forward. Weiss frowned at the wielder of Manghald's loose action. That drink better not stain the carpet. Apricot only shrugged. That'll be 400 lean for the pop, kid. Bullshit, guys. Pyrrha frowned at her friend's colorful response. Naruto almost spit out his drink, his one arm slamming the glass down as he gaped. 400 lean? For a glass of pop? You're a damn rip-off artist. A con man, he shouted, gesturing to the man with his chin while waving his free arm menacingly. A guy's got to make a living, you know? That's no excuse. Weiss frowned disapprovingly. She wondered how this man even had his tavern open for business. Naruto was about to retort when another man took the stool next to him and loudly blurted out his order, swaying back and forth with a dumb look plastered on his pale face. Yang groaned when she took notice of the man in the screen. Uncle Crow! Ruby exclaimed excitedly. That's your uncle? Weiss asked, wondering if this was the same person in the intro. Ruby nodded happily. How quaint. Yep, this time the Schnee heiress just rolled her eyes. Yo, Apricot. I'm going to need 2 more rounds. I don't think that would be good for his health. Pyrrha frowned at the level of intoxication the man was about to consume. First thing about our Uncle Crow, Pyrrha, is that 2 beers will never be enough, Yang informed to her red-haired friend. My, Pyrrha said shock. You'll learn to get used to it. Ruby shrugged as she went back to the screen. The blonde made a face at the smell of liquor on his breath. Damn dude, get a breath mint. He whispered to himself. Ha, you wish. Yang smiled half-heartedly, much to the rest of the members' confusion, except Ruby. Trust us, we tried to convince him to start using them. Didn't work out, right, Rubes? Yep, Ruby said in a small chuckle, remembering the episode when they were little. Ugh, Weiss was liking this crow person less and less. Keep your dumb comments to yourself, brat. The drunk next to him spoke, sparing him a cloudy glance and snarling. You know they say talking to yourself is a sign that you're going crazy. Are you, kid? You must be, if you're in a place like this at this time of the night. Crow does seems like a delightful person to talk to. The sarcasm was not missed in Weiss's voice this time. Ruby and Yang chuckled awkwardly while watching their uncle make an ass of himself again. Naruto didn't seem fazed. Yeah, I can come up with better jabs than your uncle, Nora spoke, getting looks from everyone. What? Just saying. And you know trying to scare little kids is a sign that you're already batshit crazy. You must be, because that's what you're trying to do right now. Ha! Nora supported Naruto's excellent comeback. Oh, I like him, Yang said approvingly. Come on, Uncle Crow. You can't let him beat you like that, Ruby whined. The rest laughed and giggled respectively. TCH, stupid brat, the man grumbled, snatching both the drinks placed in front of him, and then downing one right after the other. Ah. That's good stuff. He grinned and then motioned to his right arm. Bet you wish you still had one of these, eh? He taunted the youth while swinging the appendage up and down. What the hell? Yang said as her eyes blazed red. Ruby gasped. That was uncalled for. Crow definitely seems delightful. Weiss frowned at that comment. Jerk. Nora's eyes narrowed disapprovingly. Dude, too far. Many agreed to that. Naruto fought the urge to get into a fight with a random stranger. But for once, he wasn't the one to start it this time around. Boo! Nora jeered. Kick his dusty old ass. With exclusion of Pyrrha and Ruby, the rest jeered along with Nora. They wanted to dine in Crow's soup. Thanks for the drinks, apricot. I'm feeling nice and alert now. Oh, and here, for the kid too. He dished out the appropriate amount for his own drinks and Naruto's, before turning to the blonde and speaking. You know what? I'm going to enjoy this a lot more than I thought I would. Yang's eyes narrowed as they still glowed red. He better not. Naruto would have questioned what he meant had a fist not suddenly hit him hard in the gut and sent his entire body flying, his back colliding with the door and breaking it off its hinges. He did. Ruby finished weakly. And this is for the door. Thank you, Crow. I hope you go out of business. Weiss glowered. He may not have allowed underage drinking, but he seemed fine with a minor taking a beating. Naruto sprang to his feet and shook the dirt off his coat, gritting his teeth all the while. That asshole. That punch actually kind of hurt. He made to go after the man and make him regret his decision, only for that man to stride out, a sly smirk on his face, punch his face in and force him to eat his teeth. Nora violently demanded. John, Yang and Weiss were the only ones that supported Valkyrie's violent message, as he unsheathed the blade tied to his side. Ruby and Yang frowned when they saw this. Blake was confused as that didn't look like a weapon that could transform into a scythe or in the intro, an expression that was shared with the rest. Naruto, to his credit, was already prepared for something like this to go down. In fact, he was more upset it didn't happen until after he'd gotten the chance to talk to the contact. We can't always get what we want, Ren chimed as Nora patted him on the back. This caused the Stormflower wielder to give a long sigh. Every day is a challenge with her. You just made a huge mistake, buddy. I don't know what your problem is, but I'm going to make you regret holding me up, the blonde threatened, unzipping his cloak and letting it fall behind him while simultaneously pulling down his scarf. By now, the crowd had already thinned and only the few brave and the many drunk remained to watch it all unfold. Oh? Are you now? A cripple boy thinks he can take me on? Ruby whined at her uncle's uncalled taunts towards might be a ninja alien that fell from the sky. Naruto. Crow laughed at the notion. Alright kid, your funeral. I hope it's yours, Weiss thought darkly. At that Naruto charged. Wait, can he fight? Pyrrha asked, as she finally realized that Naruto was actually picking a fight with an actual huntsman, an experienced one to boot. Yang started to realize that and frowned. She knew that her uncle was a badass even without his main weapon at his side, but she didn't want to rule out Naruto so quickly. Who knows, she spoke. I know this is wishful, but I hope he does cave in some teeths. Yeah. Nora raised her fist in the air in approval. Crow had heard tell of his speed. Many rose the brows in curiosity, many realizing that Naruto was probably somewhat well known despite 1 year or so. But hearing about something and seeing it firsthand were always two very different things. Even to him the blonde was hard to spot, almost a blur, flashing about until suddenly he was at his side, one good punch aimed at his head. Crow fended the attack off with his left hand, grabbing onto the extended fist, and using the blonde's momentum to toss him away, effectively putting some distance between them. Whoa, Nora whistled. The rest widened their eyes at Naruto's display of power. Yang smirked. Maybe he can kick his ass. Damn, he hits hard for a kid. The man winced at the stabbing pain over the palm of his hand. John, Nora, Weiss and Yang cheered approvingly at this feat. Naruto rolled and came back up again, a frown on his face. You're no ordinary drunk, Yang scoffed. Uncle Crow breaks the barriers and limits of drunks everywhere. Most people can't keep up with me with like that. He commented. TCH. And it looks like you really aren't just some kid. I guess the stories about you weren't all made up. Crow then grinned. Well, that's fine by me, it'll make this all the more fun. Ooh, wonder what he's famous for, Ruby said, curiosity, getting many to wonder as well. Stories? Naruto asked. The blonde found himself playing defense when the tip of the blade went sailing past him, and like so many other times before he managed to dodge seemingly on pure instinct alone. He had no time to think, however, as a fist collided with his jaw, stunning him. Another one landed on his stomach, then another, and then his chin again. Uhut! The viewers said as they saw the blows connect. Naruto stumbled for a moment, stars in his vision, but he still managed to catch the powerful kick aimed at his ribs. Crow grunted and tried to free himself, but it was pointless. Break his leg. Nora's eyes widened in madness, letting her bloodlust seep over the room. The members of Team RWBY and JNPR scrambled away from her in a safe distance. With a mighty cry, the blonde gripped the outstretched leg in between his forearm and bicep and squeezed tightly, smirking when he heard something pop. Crow screamed at the sharp pain. The room was quiet, to the point that not even the cricket dared to disturb the silence. Sound was then returned as Nora spoke softly. Yes. Yeez. This is awesome. Nora's body trembled in pure joy after hearing the sweet symphony of Crow's leg being dislocated. She was going to need a new pair of underwear after this episode was finished. Everyone looked at Rin for help. He shook his head, not even he could get her out of her trance-induced madness, and delivered a powerful elbow to the back of the kid's head, stunning him again and using that split second to push the blonde off. He felt it was a rather low blow, but the kid really didn't leave him much of a choice. You fight like a damn animal, you shitty brat. His knee was dislocated, and man did that fucking hurt. Despite the uncalled taunts that their uncle made, they did worry a little about his well-being. They were quite surprised to see him actually get hurt. Show me some skill or something. At this rate this would just end up looking like him beating on some random teenager. Oh, wouldn't they just eat that one up? Given that it's you, definitely, Yang grinned as she watched the fight continue on. Shut up! Naruto cried whilst nursing his head wound. You almost killed me throwing your sword like that. That was the point, you fool. I'm trying to kill you here. Yeah. I want blood. Nora cackled in glee, creeping out her friends in the process. The blonde blew a raspberry. Many let out snorts of chuckles and giggles at Naruto's childish response. Fine, if that's the way it is then I'm not holding back. Crow blinked and then grinned. So, you're going to take this seriously then? Alright, show me what you've got, Grim Reaper. Ruby squealed when she heard that, trying her best to hide her envy as she spoke softly. That's such a cool nickname, I want one. Many nodded at that. Before his very eyes, Naruto exploded in a bright showing of ephemeral blue flames. They licked at his skin and flowed off of him like wisps of smoke, but he looked unharmed. He could visibly see the aura, could feel it too. It sent shivers down his spine and gave him goosebumps. Awesome, John observed. They looked just as cool in the intro. Many agreed as they admired the scene of Naruto's flames. What kind of power is this? He marveled at the sight. All right, you bastard, clench your teeth. Naruto's blue eyes were practically glowing with unrestrained power. And when he blasted off, the ground underneath him cracked. Fuck him up, Naruto. Fuck him up, Nora. Pira was aghast with her friend as she continued her vulgar chant. Yang chuckled. Nora would fit right in with the crowd of EPW, Extreme Pro Wrestling. Crow sobered up almost immediately. No, that's something I don't see every day, Yang quipped. Ruby giggled when she heard that. The kid was twice as fast now. No, even more than that. Crow didn't even bother trying to catch his punch this time. He was sure the impact alone would have broken his hand without him taking the proper countermeasures. Ren groaned at Nora's chanting. Ruby frowned. He uncle wasn't a PU, or coward. He ducked to the right and watched Naruto rocket past him, his quivering fist hitting the wall of the tavern behind him and blasting it to pieces, smoke, chunks of metal, and broken glass flying everywhere. It felt like the entire building itself had shaken from the impact of that blow alone. Fuck that place. Fuck that place. Weiss agreed as she grinned at the makeover the tavern was getting. Damn it. He'd have to pay for that too. What the hell? He's ridiculously strong. I'd heard he might be a faunus, but this much is insane even for them. Blake begrudgingly agreed with Crow on this. Naruto burst from the smoke and came at him with even more ferocity than before. The kid has great instincts, but no control. He really does fight like a wild animal. He ducked a punch and reeled back, avoiding a follow-up knee. The man blinked and Naruto was already in front of him by the time he'd landed. I want blood. I want blood. Ignoring Nora's chants, Pira keenly watched the battle between the skilled huntsman and Naruto. She agreed with Crow. Naruto's fighting style was rather wild like an animal, and for what she could tell by observing the match, while Naruto did have speed and power, he couldn't make much use of it given that his offensive strikes lacked in skill and coordination. He just swung where he thought it would hurt the most. While that wasn't exactly bad on paper, Naruto wasn't approaching Crow's weak points strategically and deceptively. The only thing she could praise him was his defense, where he seemed to be rather experienced in, as well as being able to resilient enough to take a hurdle of strong blows. Where did you learn to fight, kid? Crow asked while avoiding another blow. At the very least he had much more experience underneath his belt. As strong and as fast as the kid might be for his age, the man had fought stronger, faster, and much bigger opponents in the past. Naruto growled and rushed after, coming down on him like a blue comet, his left arm reared back and practically cackling with explosive power. Naruto's gonna kill you! Yang barked up a laugh at that. It was funny, but she doubted it. None of your beeswax! He roared. When his fist met the spot where Crow stood, another tremor shook the building. Whoa! You need to be more careful, kid. There are people in there. Fuck those guys. Fuck those guys. Geez, Nora, Pira said as she wondered her friend's morality. Crow advised from far away, waving at the now angry blonde. Shut up, damn you! Naruto strutted before following after him. The two played a game of cat and mouse for quite a while, with Crow leading him farther and farther out of the city and toward the shore without Naruto ever realizing it. As he evaded each attack, the dark-haired man was rather surprised to know that Naruto had yet to figure out that he was the contact. The kid isn't very bright either. Pira chuckled as she too noticed, analyzing Naruto's fighting skills. Stop running away, you jerk! Naruto cried while rushing him, kicking up a storm of sand behind him. Yeah. Fight like the huntsman you are. Nora angrily expressed at the screen. She wanted that other leg broken, damn it. His aura cloak is weaker too. He doesn't know how to properly channel his energy, and lacks control of his unknown energy, Pira thought as she finished assessing Naruto's fighting skills. Finally finished analyzing him, Pira could tell with confidence that Naruto needed to be taught the proper basics of hand-to-hand combat in order to strengthen his offense. He also needs to be more deductive when fighting an opponent. Finally but not least, better control of his energy. For some reason Pira could tell that was going to be the most difficult task. Crow suddenly stopped and put his arms up in the widely recognized gesture for surrender. Alright Naruto, that's enough. You've impressed me. Now chill. You don't want to beat up the guy you're here to meet, do you? Buh. I want blood. Not peace. Ren slapped Nora upside the head and gave her a stern glare which promised her that there would be no pancakes in next semester of class. Nora grumbled as she died out her chance. Naruto heard him, but couldn't stop. It's not that he didn't want to, he just couldn't even if he tried. What little control he did have over his massive aura reserves didn't allow him that much. It seemed his now revealed contact had realized this, as he'd easily sidestepped the incoming attack and watched with mild interest as the blonde hit the water and skipped like a thrown rock. Unlike a rock, however, Naruto didn't sink. What? Everyone of Team RWBY and JNPR said, wondering if the TV was playing tricks on them. Crow watched on, his jaw actually hitting the floor, as the kid laid above the water like it was solid and then stood, groaning all the while. Ren, I think I had way too many pancakes because I think I'm seeing a person walking on water, Nora said, still transfixed at seeing Naruto, who somehow did not sink in the water. Ren couldn't reply as he was too busy staring as well. I really need to work on my landings. Many chuckled, but anyone could tell how forced it was. He muttered. And you've got some expla. What? Why are you looking at me like that? You're creeping me out, dude. You can walk on water? Crow whispered, shock written all over his face. Naruto tilted his head and nodded slowly. Yeah. Can't everyone? Holy shit. Surprisingly, this came from the mouth of Pira. Everyone soon stared at her. The invincible girl soon registered the words she muttered out, and in shame and embarrassment she covered her mouth, letting out a rather cute and humiliated whine. I'm sorry, mother. She was raised better than this. Everyone couldn't savor the moment to chuckle as they stared back at the screen. Naruto still standing in the water like it was solid ground. He's definitely not a faunus, Blake said with resolution in her voice. I think this a sign, Weiss said. I have no idea what it is, but I can feel it. Some weren't sure how to respond to Weiss' comment, but they could tell she wasn't exactly wrong. The tall man deadpanned. Just who the hell was this kid? The fire cackled, and over it 3 fish were slowly being roasted. Now that the fighting was done and over with, the two sat before the flames by the beach, setting up a small camp while they talked. A starlit sky accompanying the broken moon above them. So, the Grim Reaper is what people are calling me? Naruto grinned. That sounds so cool. It does, doesn't it? RWBY whined, slowly losing the shock of seeing Naruto walk on water. Many agreed as they too were shaking off their shock. Crow nodded across from the blonde. Yup. A cripple with one arm and no weapon, who travels around offering to kill Grim for food and a place to sleep. Ugh, it even has a cool backstory to justify the name. RWBY whined further. Who needs 2 arms when you only just need 1? Nora said approvingly of Naruto's feats. A badass doesn't need 2 arms, he only needed 1. Something like that is bound to start rumors. Although up until now, I'd thought most of those things were just that. A rumor. A miscommunication. Now though, RWBY read beside him. I can definitely see how you'd be able to kill a Grim without a weapon. Everyone agreed with that after seeing Naruto's fight with Crow. The blonde brought a fist up to his chest. He seemed proud to hear those words. Damn right you do, the older man chuckled. You're an odd one, no doubt about it. Here we are, chatting it up like old friends as if I didn't threaten to kill you. I have to ask, are you always this trusting? Naruto blinked, mimicking an owl. Well, you explained to me that it was just a test. Why should I be mad at you? Besides, you're going to help me, right? You said you could in your message. You're being too forgiving. Weiss disapproved of Naruto letting Crow get away with the insult of his lost limb. We demand punishment. Nora cheered. I offer to kick him in the balls. John shared to his friends. John, that is vulgar. Pira cried out. John stared at her with neutrality. Pira blushed as she cowed cutely to his stare. I forward and will carry out that motion as her niece who bears his unwanted sins, Yang proclaimed. Yang! He's our uncle. RWBY gasped. Not anymore, sis, Yang replied coldly, much to RWBY's horror. In a tavern, a dusty old crow scratched his balls in a vulgar fashion. Must be an itch. Despite his thoughts, he couldn't shake off the dreadful feeling. That I did. But to help you, I'm going to need to know a little more about you. Crow spoke, crossing his arms and leaning forward. I'd like to know more about me too, Naruto said, poking at the fires with a stick. Everyone perked up at this. What do you mean? I have amnesia. I woke up in a forest by the village of sunflowers, and I stayed there for a month before leaving on a trip to try and figure out who I am. I've been searching for a year now, looking for clues and stuff. I haven't learned much. Every now and then I'll remember something, but it just ends up confusing me more. Crow hummed aloud. I see. Sunflower, huh? Makes sense considering your name is just as weird as theirs. Can you tell me what it is you do remember? Naruto thought it over for a moment, before he nodded. Yeah, sure. Some of it is actually pretty cool. For starters, I'm a ninja. Holy shit, Nora said in shock that soon turned to a shit-eating grin. Ruby, we were right. After hearing the little red speedster squealed once more as she clapped her hands repeatedly like a child. I can't believe it. Weiss watched the scene unfold in disbelief. Nora rose from the floor and motioned her hand forward to her leader John. Cough up the lean, Johnny boy. John crossed his arms as he decided to enlighten Nora. You said that he might be an alien. It was Ruby who said that Naruto could be a ninja. So really it was Ruby who was right. Nora snarled in rage as she gave John a vicious glare, her hand closed in a wrathful fist. John, the self-proclaimed fearless, brave, cunning, and total heartthrob leader of Team JNPR, screamed like the little girl that he was as he heroically scrambled towards Pyrrha, clutching her tightly over his body. The poor invincible girl was still recovering from cowing down to John's stare after motioning the kicking of Crow's balls moments ago. Having him hug her so tightly wasn't helping her blush die out, and instead it only increased it further as it went on. Pyrrha tried to wiggle out of John's grip, but every time she tried he held more tighter each time. By now Pyrrha's face could have given a tomato a run for his money. Nora rudely pointed her finger at John as she spoke. When he's revealed to be an alien you will pay me double. Before Nora could intimidate John furthermore, Rin came in to save the day as he threw a plate of freshly cooked pancakes that the lover of all pancakes immediately leaped out for them. John sighed as he let go of Pyrrha. He gave a small silent thank you to his friend. Rin just bowed as he took his seat on the floor. Pyrrha, now free from John, was trying to calm her beating heart, shifting her legs rather nervously. Ruby finally stopped squealing, getting everyone's attention. The silver-eyed warrior then looked at Weiss, pointing triumphantly. I was right. Weiss made a loud groan at Ruby's smug face. We know, lil sis, we know, Young said as she sat her down. Let's continue on, Blake added. Crow snorted. Hey. It's true. I was pretty good one from some of the fights I've been in, remember being in. I could do a lot of really amazing stuff like making clones, just like Blake and Son. Ruby pointed out. The cat Faunus nodded at that. When I had both arms, but I can't now. Why does he need 2 hands? Ruby asked to everyone. They didn't answer her because they didn't have clue on why. I don't even remember how I lost my arm in the first place. All the members frowned when they heard that. Yang desperately wanted to give him a hug, but Naruto was at the other side. He trailed off for a moment, before catching himself. Anyway, I remember being lonely as a kid. I also remember being on a team, with a teacher and 2 friends. And then I remember these eyes. At this, the red-eyed man perked up. Naruto's expression had gone from somber to disturbed within seconds, and there was a faint weakness to his voice. Everyone noted it too as they paid more close attention to the conversation. I remember these huge, bloody eyes. They were looking down at me, and this voice, this messed up and evil voice. It spoke to me. You should be grateful, it said, to that pathetic man, and to me. I don't know what it was or what it meant, but I remember that one the best for some weird reason. That is weird, Ruby whispered. The rest thought the same. Blake wondered if this connected Naruto to that beast that he behind his back at the end of intro. It was plausible. The wielder of the gamble shroud knitted her brow in thought. The more she knew about Naruto, the more mysterious he became. The fire cackled and helped to alleviate the weight of the silence that settled between them following his explanation. Naruto bit his lip and averted his gaze after a moment, expecting the man to laugh at him or brush what he'd said off entirely like most others did. Instead, Crow sighed and reached for a fish, taking one and handing it to the perplexed blonde before grabbing another for himself. Yang and Ruby smirked. Nothing fazed their Uncle Crow. Man, you're just the whole package, aren't you, kid? Totally, the entire group chorused in harmony, he said. Amnesia, crazy powers, a hothead. A half-smirk came to life when the blonde angry protested, incidentally proving his point. I'll be honest. I mostly lied when I said I could help you. Not many were surprised by the huntsman's revelation. I just wanted to meet you and see what you were made of. I have to say, you didn't disappoint. But you could be better. He paused. How would you feel about coming with me, Naruto? If Yang was having drink she would have spitted it out right now. Yang, we get to meet Naruto first. Ruby said in glee, we're going to be friends with a ninja alien. That's great, Rubes. Yang gave a half-hearted smile to her sister's enthusiasm. Ugh, wonder how Dad is going to be cool with this decision. He's not an alien, John corrected the wielder of the crescent rose. Yet Nora whispered as she stared back at John. John stared back at Nora in an equal stare. She will not have his leans. I don't know, I'm not sure if I. Come on, say yes. Ruby always wanted a ninja alien friend. Correction. You should come with me. By now I'm not the only one who's heard of the Grim Reaper stirring up trouble in the West. More people will come after you, and when they see what you can do, I promise that they won't have your freedom in mind. He still seemed uncertain. Come on, kid, I've got my cute little niece with me too. She's around your age, I think, and she's waiting in an inn in the town right now. I'm sure she'd love to meet you. I would. Ruby squealed cutely with her fist in the air, and I get to meet him much early, yay. Many laughed at her antics. Naruto frowned, ignoring that last bit and asking what was on his mind. Hey, Ruby pouted cutely. She didn't want to be ignored. And how exactly are you going to help me, HM? Good question, Weiss spoke. Crow grinned. I'm glad you asked. I can't solve your memory problem, but I can teach you how to control that outrageous power of yours. You won't be any more trouble than Ruby is, so I don't mind. Hey, I resent that. Of course if you try and distract me from my booze, I'll beat you senseless. He's not kidding, Yang informed to the group. My dad and him almost get into fights because of this. The blonde sighed. Can I sleep on it? Say yes, Ruby whispered. She wanted a ninja buddy. Sure, kid. You can sleep on it. Naruto nodded and took a bite out of his fish, smiling at the taste and greedily digging in for more. Crow watched him from the corner of his eye and frowned, taking a bite out of his own cooked fish to hide the act. There was another reason why they would come for him that he'd felt the blonde didn't need to know. The Grimm that he slayed weren't there out of sheer coincidence. No, they'd followed him to those cities and towns. Followed behind the malevolent feeling that outright seeped through this kid's skin without him even knowing, like rabid dogs. Everyone frowned when they heard that. Ruby's normal enthusiasm died at what she heard. She wanted to ask, but she doubted she would get answers as of now. Even now Crow could see it. The faint image of those same bloody eyes he'd spoken of and a jagged smile lurking behind him. You really are the complete package, kid. Everyone stared at the thrilling visage of the monster that stood behind Naruto. Blake gave a worried look and wondered, what is he? Reading remnants of who you are. Everyone stood quiet in the room, all processing the image of the beast that lurked behind Naruto a few minutes ago. Some could faintly see the red eyes of malice and his slitted pupils, while others noted some animalistic traits but couldn't pinpoint the class due to the shadowy veil covering most of his appearance. Nora went to her dorm for the meantime, for reasons she did not specify as to why. She didn't think that deeply into Naruto's past or the beast that lurked behind him like the others in the room because she knew it was eventually going to be revealed as they continued watching the show further on, and in her own opinion she thought the beast looked cool in a scary and evil kind of way. As the rest thought of their own theories of Naruto, Blake was more enchanted in the mystery that was the self-proclaimed ninja blonde. Lost in her own thoughts, the cat Faunus mind raced, wondering what mysteries that Naruto held hidden in his character, the type of person he is or was. It excited Blake. It's the reason why she loved reading books in the first place. Every story had a tale, a mystery, a lore that was further explored as the story progressed. She wondered of his past, the mysterious beast that lurked behind his back, the strange flames that surrounded him like some aura-like shield, the loss of his missing limb. She wanted to know his past and how he got to their world. Blake was determined to figure out this mystery. So what is he? Blake was the first to break the silence in the room after taking their time to process episode 2 of Remnants of Who You Are. I have not even the slightest clue. Weiss frowned as she remembered how the episode ended. She admitted the beast behind the blonde protagonist scared her a little. We know he's a ninja. Ruby refreshed the team with the claimed fact by Naruto in a rather upbeat manner, saying that fact alone dispelled the negative dread that Ruby felt about the beast that lurked behind Naruto's back. She cared more about having a ninja friend than some dark beast that was lurking behind her soon-to-be ninja best friend. Ruby got ecstatic of the thought. Ninjas were cool. Yes, but I think there's more about him than he really knows. Blake frowned. She was expecting a good answer from Ruby instead of being reminded of the fact. But it's the best lead we have on him. Pyrrha smiled as she shared with her friends. If we take a few of the scenes of the intro, Naruto is quite experienced in battles, though not enough to beat a veteran hunter like Yang and Ruby's Uncle Crow. And he didn't have his main weapon, Ruby informed once again to the group. Yang frowned. Yeah, Uncle Crow rarely does that. He always brings and fights with Fran on the road. Fran? John asked confusedly. Oh, it's the name of Uncle Crow's weapon. You know the scythe? John nodded as he got it. After the small talk with John and Yang was over, Rin went back on topic and voiced his plausible answer. He probably must have been confident in defeating Naruto without the assistance of Fran. Weiss scoffed. If that's true, then I think it's pretty unprofessional of him. His leg would have still be in place if he brought his main weapon. Hey, Uncle Crow would have still kicked Naruto's, but with or without Fran, frowned Ruby, not liking the idea of her uncle losing. It could be true, but Weiss has a point, Ruby. Your uncle could have avoided the bad luck of getting injured if he just brought his main weapon, Pyrrha said. Weiss let a haughty smirk grace her face that eclipsed over Ruby's childish scowl. And also Naruto stated he could create clones, but due to the loss of his arm he couldn't perform the ability for some reason. Pyrrha continued on. So Naruto, in a way, was handicapped as well. In fact, if Naruto had his clones at his disposal, he might have given Crow much more trouble in the battle, maybe even lost. A loud raspberry was the response of Ruby. Her uncle would still win, no exceptions. Naruto just got lucky to take some shots. Pyrrha chuckled, not offended by Ruby's rude response. Which is weird. Does anyone have a good idea as to why he needs his other arm in order to make a clone, and better yet, how many can he make? Asked Yang to the members. Blake had a good theory, and it was thanks to a certain monkey Faunus she knew. Remember Sun's semblance. Oh, we talking about Sun now? Yang smiled deviously to her partner. Then let's talk about his abs. Her face heated when Blake heard that. Have you ever felt them? A loud hiss was her response. Blake couldn't believe Yang just asked that. What is a good question? Yang held her hands in defense with a smile. That is not relevant to the topic we are discussing. Blake yelled. It was relevant to me, thought Yang with a smile. Sun's defined abs aside, the cat Faunus paused as she said, blushing deeply while her friends held their laughter at what she just said. The point is about Sun's semblance. What's it called? Asked John. Via Sun, replied Blake. Weiss' face scrunched. Sounds pretty arrogant. Doesn't matter, what matters is that Sun's semblance allows him to summon 2 clones to his aid. I've seen him summon them by folding his hands, explained Blake to the group. Kinda similar to yours but more rounded, Yang smiled. Sort of, but it has a major flaw that in case Sun has to stand still and manipulate them in order to take action. Nice to know, Weiss perked at learning the faunus weakness. Pyrrha too was happy to learn a weakness from one of her future opponents from the Vital Festival. She was already thinking of ways on taking Sun Wukong down. So you're saying Naruto's clones might work similar to Sun's? RWBY asked. In terms of summoning them, yes. In ways of commanding, I'm not so sure, Blake answered. Neat, I wonder how many clones he can make? RWBY wondered. He seemed rather confident with the ability, so my best guess would be 4 or 5, counting him of course, Pyrrha shared. Why just 4 and 5, why not an army? RWBY smiled at the thought, an army of her. She would be unstoppable. Weiss shivered, having a good guess on RWBY's thoughts. 1 was enough, thank you very much. Yang chuckled, but she was pretty much in agreement with Ice Queen. She was fine with 1 sister, and 1 sister only. Well, I guess we got this theory under wrap, spoke John with a smile. Hopefully they will be able to see the technique in the future. Blake carried the conversation and said, so let's move on to the next topic. It's time we address the elephant in the room. The beast that lurks behind Naruto's back. The room went quiet. We're not entirely sure what that thing is, said Weiss. All I know is that it could be the force. No, I'm confident that is the force that attracts Grims towards Naruto. Everyone stayed silent as Weiss continued, not wanting to interrupt her. This beast or whatever that thing is that lurks around Naruto gives me a bad feeling, and that fact alone quite scares me. Why's that? Asked RWBY, concerned for her friend. Weiss looked over her leader, making eye contact. I don't know, I just have this feeling that that thing is something that shouldn't be messed with. Blake contemplated Weiss' words. She sighed as she knew the topic wasn't going nowhere. They weren't going to find anything helpful about the beast unless they continued on the show. Though the cat Faunus had a theory that maybe it was the beast that caused Naruto's Faunus-like transformation. She wasn't sure, but she was confident. Sup, I'm back. Nora entered the room with a new pair of underwear after she messed with the other with her orgasm of violence. Nora waved as her friends greeted her upon arrival. The TV turned up on cue and the intro soon played. RWBY hummed to the lyrics as she watched the awesome opening again. The opening ended and title soon appeared. Chapter 3 read. RWBY beamed upon seeing it. She was going to appear soon. Naruto decided to go with Crow. Well, he'd been bribed and vaguely threatened, but it was his choice nonetheless. Weiss grumbled critically over the decision. She thought he should have just declined when she read that he was threatened, but it was Naruto's decision nonetheless. She will respect it. The two woke up at the crack of dawn and headed over to where Crow's niece was staying. RWBY got up from her seat and made exaggerated poses as she spoke. Oh yeah, get ready new best ninja buddy. RWBY Rose is about to rock your world. Oh my, Pyrrha blushed at RWBY's word. John shifted in his seat. He was ashamed of actually visualizing the image. Yang snorted into a fit of laughter after the play of words RWBY spouted. Blake's cheeks tinged pink as she criticized her partner in a low whisper. Act your age, Yang. Never. Yang whispered back. What's so funny? RWBY asked at the confusion of her friends. Trying to stop her giggles, Weiss responded. Nothing much, it's just a joke I told everyone about the day. RWBY's eyes brightened as she heard that. Really, can you tell me? I like jokes. You're too young to understand, Weiss replied quickly. Many of the members nodded quickly except Nora, who was waiting to continue the show. RWBY pouted as she didn't say anything and took her seat and continued watching. The trip was shorter and less eventful than last night's, but he enjoyed it. Watching the sunrise was a nice treat. Pyrrha could agree with the blonde. The sun was always nice to look at, especially with a long day of training. In that short while Naruto learned a little bit about the dark-haired man he would be traveling with, mainly that he was a hunter, a really good one at that. Uncle Crow is not only the best huntsman, but he has the hardest working liver in all of Remnant. RWBY exaggerated dramatically. I doubt the liver part. Yang smiled at her sister. RWBY sticked out her tongue childishly in response. The group chuckled at her behavior. Naruto counted 7 times Crow could have taken him out last night, and he was probably missing a few more. He would have kicked your butt 100 times over. RWBY boasted her uncle's skill. Yang chuckled at her sister's cuteness at fangirling over her uncle. Pyrrha was impressed about the blonde's observation. She had to reevaluate his intelligence. He was more deductive than he let on, and that he loved booze. Shocker, sarcasm dripped from Yang's voice as she heard that. RWBY giggled at that. Weiss' nose scrunched at the reminder of the huntsman's love for alcohol. Like really loved booze. To the point he'll marry it. Yang heimed in as she laughed. Yang, stop, you're embarrassing yourself. Blake cringed at her partner's attempt in mimicking a hammy voice. Yang frowned. Oh please, it wasn't that bad. You're right, Yang, Weiss voiced. See, Weiss thinks I wasn't that bad. Yang smiled at the Ice Queen and gave her a saucy wink for her support. Appalled by the affection of her teammate, Weiss hastily informed her. I was saying you were right on not being bad because in my opinion it was terrible. Yang gasped as her feelings were hurt. She glared at the Schneeris. No more sexy winks to you. A tomato landed at Yang's face. Boo, that sucked. Yang's burned red with rage as she was about to deck that electric amped redhead to smithereens. Nora welcomed the challenge, but sadly her teammates stopped it from escalating as Yang was soon dog-piled by members of Team RWBY and JNPR. Yang's eyes returned to her usual lilac as she dusted her jacket, grumbling at her friends for interfering in her destroying Nora. She gave the powerhouse of Team GNPR one last glance. She glared at her, silently messaging her that this wasn't over. Nora smiled cockily as she upturned her palm and extended and retracted her fingers, goading the busted blonde to bring it. Ren soon sprayed her with water to put a stop from yet again another violent encounter between the two. He sighed as they continued to get back and watch the show, so Naruto spoke up, his one hand in his pocket. "What's your niece like? Are you sure she won't mind some random guy tagging along?" "I won't mind," Ruby replied excitedly. "He can't hear you, sis," Yang reminded his sister. She blushed in embarrassment as Ruby then put her hood to hide her shame. Weiss smiled as she rolled her eyes. That was her leader. Crow chuckled. "She's different." "Oh, we know that for sure," Weiss smiled, looking at her leader. Ruby frowned. She wasn't sure if that was an insult or a compliment, but she would take it nonetheless. Yang ruffled her sister's hair playfully, making sure she didn't think too much of Weiss and Uncle Crow's comment. In her opinion, being different was cool. "And I'm positive, kid. If anything, she'll be excited to see what you can do." "You bet I will," Ruby yelled excitedly. "Not only do I get a ninja buddy, I get a ninja buddy with awesome mystical ninja powers. Who is also an alien." "Not an alien," John punctuated the fact. Yet Nora glared daggers at her leader. The arc returned the Valkyrie's glare twofold. "She will not win this battle. She will not get his lean." "Ugh, would you dorks pipe down? Some of us are trying to watch here," Weiss grumbled, the rest of the group's annoyance. Or so she thought. Pyrrha and Yang were pretty much fine with the shenanigans and playful talks the rest of the members indulged themselves into. Ren too was fine but was rather lenient with the talks, as long as Nora behaved. Blake was the only one who shared Weiss' feelings. She wanted to watch and discover more about Naruto. Naruto pursed his lips at that, not really knowing what to think of it. Different? He wondered how different. The blonde felt nervous already. What little he did remember from his scattered memories told him he hadn't been very good with people. "I wonder what type of person I was, to be that hated?" The crew frowned as they heard that, many wondering what type of person was in the past. Ruby frowned. Deep in her gut she knew Naruto wasn't a bad person, yet she wondered as to why he was hated. Blake blinked as she saw Naruto's eyes. She could tell with just a single glance that Naruto was discriminated. He had those same tired-out looks of that of the former senior members of the White Fang, who were first dealt with the injustices and discriminations of the old laws. She wondered if his whisker marks were the cause. From the corner of his eye, Crow caught the flicker of doubt on his companion's face but said nothing of it. The duo walked through the giant steel doors of the inn, and Naruto marveled at the sight. Crow had to be loaded. This was too much. Statues, expensive furniture, well-dressed people. This was a place for the rich, no doubt about it. Yang grumbled as she reminded that Uncle Crow was picky with his money. "Naruto," Crow spoke up. "Remember what we talked about. You keep your abilities a secret." "I got it. I'll keep things to myself." Naruto didn't understand why he had to be so secretive about who he was or what he could do, but he figured it was best to listen. "Yeah, it's not often we see a guy walk on water." John agreed that it was best for Naruto keep his skills hidden. Yeah, they would have probably strapped him in a table and do all sorts of sick experiments on him. Yang wriggling her fingers close to her younger sister. Ruby shuddered at the thought. "Stop it, Yang. That could actually happen to Naruto." "The marathoning of the things strangers have been getting in your heads, it's just made up," Weiss said. "But they would totally experiment on him once they figure out his weird powers," Ruby argued. "She isn't wrong. What's stopping people from trying to figure out on what makes Naruto tick?" John supported. As gruesome as the implication sounded, Weiss admitted they weren't wrong. The Shinii heiress hoped for Naruto to be careful with his secrets. Crow wasn't a bad guy, a drunk sure, but not a bad guy. He could usually sense when something was off about people, and he didn't feel any of that from him. Ruby and Yang smiled at Naruto's trust over their uncle. Blake rose a brow at Naruto's apparent skill in sensing something off on people. Pyrrha had the same thoughts as her cat Fauna's friend, though she believed it was skill that Naruto had probably learned after the intro suggested that Naruto has been in a few battles. The two made their way over to the checkout desk and Crow put on a charming smile, leaning over the counter and running a hand through his shaggy black hair. "Hey there, Aqua, you're looking as gorgeous as ever." Yang grumbled at her uncle's flirty nature. Ruby just sighed at her uncle's behavior. Weiss scoffed and rolled her eyes at the old huntsman's attempt to flirt, which Pyrrha found quite ironic given to Neptune. Aqua rolled her eyes and handed the man a set of keys, barely sparing him a second glance. "Ruby ate the mini-fridge out, and she made sure to tell me you're paying. Don't forget." "Oh, I trained you so well," Yang said dotingly, pinching her cute little sister's cheek. Yang stop. Crow snatched the keys and walked away, grumbling all the while. Naruto couldn't help but grin at the sight. He also had no luck with the ladies. "Yep, Uncle Crow can't meet any nice girls," Ruby smiled. "Yeah, he has shit luck finding them too," Yang quipped in with a smile. Ruby frowned at her sister's language. "Yang, you shouldn't curse. Dad raised us better than this." "Fuck, shit, fuck, did I forget to mention fuck that?" Yang responded with absolutely no regret. Pyrrha and Ruby were appalled for the amount of swear words Yang cursed out. Weiss and Blake grumbled at Yang's over-the-top cursing. Following behind the aggravated man, the blonde stifled a fit of giggles and found his place by his side again. Looks like she didn't like you very much, old man. He mocked. What the hell do you know, you shitty brat? I'll have you know I've gotten to second base before and all without a single drop of rum. Yang and Ruby blanched at the imagery. The same could be said to their teammates and friends as they didn't want to know about Crow's sex life. Wow, second base. This time the imagery of their uncle getting handsy with a girl was shattered with Naruto's remark. Ruby and Yang snickered along with their friends. He flinched when Crow angrily bopped him over the head. Ouch. What the hell? You like beating on kids, you sicko? Just shut the hell up already. You talk way too much for a cripple and I don't have the booze to deal with it. Don't make me take your other arm, damn it. Naruto nursed the spot where Crow hit him and murmured something underneath his breath, and then he grinned. He found it rather fun to tease Crow, and if he were to be honest with himself, he would admit to how much he liked the company. Traveling alone for a whole year wasn't much fun. Glad you have a source of entertainment, Naruto. Young beamed smile. We can use a guy that can knock our uncle down a peg. Am I right, Rubes? Ruby smiled totally. They came up to a door at the very end of the hall, and just as Crow was getting ready to open it, the man paused. Naruto couldn't see his face but he could hear the steady breathing, as if the man were preparing himself for something. He was hesitating. Why was he hesitating? Yeah, why is he hesitating? Is there something wrong with the door? Ruby asked. Yang chuckled at her obliviousness. She looked at her friends and pointed at her sister, which was met with confusion. As if to answer his prayers, the door broke from its hinges and crashed against Crow with enough force to send his entire body flying, only for it to meet with the wall. Naruto watched Crow's hand twitch from behind the now splintered wood, and openly gaped, until they figured it out. You're late, uncle. Naruto turned to face the speaker, and came face to face with Red. Red hair, a red hood, a red cloak. A lot of red. I can see that her taste in colors are quite diverse. Weiss smirked at her teammates' choice of clothing. Many laughed and Ruby frowned. They were just jealous cause no one could rock red like her except maybe Pyrrha, but she didn't count. The girl, who he could only assume was Ruby, looked like she wouldn't hurt a fly. Looks can be deceiving, Blake quipped. Yeah, I sliced off a Nevermore's head, Ruby boasted adorably to her friends as she sighed/motioned. Blake smiled as she saw her leader's cheerfulness. Never mind. She looked innocent and happy and like an all-round nice person. Ah, really? Ruby looked quite bashful by the compliment. Most people rarely described her like that since most note her off weird and socially awkward. Yang nodded at the cuteness of her sister. Blue eyes shifted between her and the now groaning Crow and he quickly thought otherwise. It's a lie. She's a monster. Ruby let out a whine as Naruto instantly betrayed her feelings. Yang popped her knuckles. That kid was lucky that he was on the other side or else she would have decked him the jaw. It was true that appearances could be deceiving. Obviously, Blake smiled. Oh, hey there. You must be Naruto. My silly uncle told me you would be tagging along. She smiled sweetly when she noticed him and extended a hand. My name's Ruby, and I'm going to be the best hunter in the whole world. It's nice to meet you. Rather large goals. Pyrrha smiled at her friend, instantly supporting her. Ruby shied away. It was quite embarrassing, but pretty naive. After all, the best hunter will be me after all, Weiss proclaimed haughtily. We'll see about that. Ruby glared at her partner. Pyrrha beamed at the development. She always encouraged healthy competitions. Naruto was floored by the introduction. Still, he took her arm and smiled back. Nice to meet you, Ruby. And I believe you. Really? Ruby beamed in joy. The girl beamed at him and he swore he was about to go blind. Ugh, I know her cuteness is too dazzling. Yang covered her eyes dramatically. Quick, someone call the police. There's no way my little sister can't be this cute. Hey! The group laughed at the interaction between the sisters. All the while, behind them, Crow pushed the door away from him and fell face first against it, twitching all the while with a pool of blood steadily growing underneath his face. Help me. You'll be fine, Yang casually dismissed. Pyrrha admired the damage that Ruby caused to the veteran hunter. Kids these days were brutal. Hey! Stop it! Ruby pouted cutely. Everyone smiled at her. So, Naruto, this is my niece, lovely Ruby. Crow pointed to the smiling girl while nursing both his nose and knee. Aura could do a lot for the body, but the aches always remained. She'll be traveling with us on our way to Vale. We've met. Naruto said, still eyeing her warily. Don't blame for keeping his guard up. Weiss folded her arms, knowing full well that behind that smile was an annoying and persistent girl. That really hurts my feelings, Ruby whined pitifully. Yang consoled her sister, which she thanked her for. Ruby waved happily from her spot on the couch, a pleasant smile on her face. Yang gushed. It's been a long time since she's seen her sister this young before. It was refreshing to see her at this again. Well, now that the introductions are over, let's get a move on, kids. The dark-haired man yawned and moved to the liquor cabinet, snatching a bottle of ale, and then snatching another, and what the hell is wrong with this guy? Naruto thought to himself, watching with wide eyes. I used to wonder the same thing. Yang smirked at her uncle's alcohol consumption. Weiss was appalled by how normal Ruby and Yang acted on this, but then again it would explain their weirdness. It would seem this behavior was rather normal, however, as Ruby didn't even flinch, acting as if nothing were amiss with the fact that her uncle had just stashed 13 bottles of liquor onto his person. Naruto couldn't even tell how he did it. Deep pockets, Yang grinned. Blake gave a skeptical look at the explanation. Uncle, don't forget to grab Fran. Oh, the scythe, John reminded. Oh, tch, almost forgot. He chuckled nervously before making his way over to a large, rectangle-shaped object painted red and black. Fran? Naruto echoed, eyeing the thing as Crow picked it up and placed it behind him, hiding it underneath the shadows of his cape. Cool-looking weapon, John admired. I know, right, Ruby agreed with her socially awkward buddy. My wife. My lover. My guiding moonlight. She's my weapon, and she's one of a kind. Huh, now I know where Ruby gets it from, said Weiss as she observed. Get what? Ruby asked in confusion. Nothing, Weiss dodged the question with a smile. Naruto reeled at the man's words. You mean last night you didn't even have your weapon on you? He muttered shocked. Crow winked and grinned triumphantly, a wide smirk on his face. And I was drunk. Count your chickens, kid, count every last one. Ruby matched her uncle's wide smirk. She knew he could beat him. Many were impressed with Crow's feat except Weiss. Can't please them all. Ruby looked between the gaping blonde and her haughty uncle for a split second before stars lit up in her eyes. Oh boy, Yang chuckled. What's wrong? Ren was the first to ask. You'll see, she smiled cryptically. The rest just soon watched as Ruby smiled. You two fought each other? Does that mean Naruto is a good fighter, Crow? Pirraz widened, realizing where this was probably going. The man in question nodded. He has a lot of raw talent and a stupid amount of power to back it up. That's all I'm saying of it. Ruby squealed. The group groaned as they rubbed their ears, still sore from the last episode. Ruby smiled apologetically for that. Oh please, oh please, oh please, can we spar Naruto? Pirraz beamed at her assumption but soon frowned. Ruby never asked her to fight. It kinda hurted her feelings a little. The blonde was taken back. I don't know, I mean wait what? Easy there sis, don't weird out Naruto, Yang said. Sorry, she blushed in embarrassment. Hopefully she didn't weird Naruto out like she did with most people. I don't see why not. Crow spoke up, uncorking his first bottle of the day. Once we get on our way we'll stop and make camp somewhere, and you two can beat the hell out of each other then. Haha, I'll drink to that. He cheered himself, took a long sip and then sighed happily. That hits the spot. Come kiddos, let's hit the road. Good luck I guess, Weiss said unsure. Thanks, Ruby smiled. She too wondered how she would fare with fighting Naruto. Nora smiled. She was looking forward for another broken leg. Ren grumbled as he sensed his childhood friend's bloodlust. Ruby cheered and Naruto groaned. Guess someone isn't looking forward for the fight, John noted. Nora casually spoke. He'll suck it up. He had to, think of the broken legs. This was bound to spell out trouble for him. He could already feel it. Ha, I'm stronger than I look, you know. Ruby boasted proudly with a smile. You still have to watch it though, Ruby. Crow may have been drunk but he still managed to break an experienced hunter's leg, Pirraz reminded her friend. Relax, I got this. The scythe wielder casually dismissed with a wave. Just as Crow promised, after a few hours on the road they'd set up camp. And now the renowned hunter was kicking back against a tree, his third bottle in his hand and a grin on his face as he prepared to watch two teenagers beat the utter crap out of each other for his personal amusement or assessment. Life was good. Yang's eye twitched in annoyance at her uncle's rather negligent behavior in allowing Ruby and Naruto to fight. Weiss was less than pleased with this man. She wondered if every episode she was going to find another reason to dislike him more. Remember kids, it's just a spar. Try not to hurt each other too bad. Break her legs, Nora eagerly said as her bloodlust seeped the room. The team leader of RWBY frowned as she unconsciously feeled her legs, safely checking if they were still in place. Ruby reached behind her and unclipped her weapon, a confident smile over her lithe features. She swung it once and a cloud of red petals obscured her form, until the edge of a wicked-looking blade cut through them and scattered them all to the winds, revealing Ruby and her weapon of choice. A scythe. The girl tensed her legs in preparation and brought the twice-her-size weapon up behind her, her grip tightening over the sleek steel as she prepared both her mind and body for the battle to come. I hope you're ready, Naruto, because I won't hold back. Yang gushed. Isn't she just adorable? Yang! Ruby whined as her sister was embarrassing her in front of her friends. Everyone had a good laugh at it, but they all agreed that Ruby did look rather cute, especially when her scythe was twice her size given her current age. Across from her, the blonde in question only groaned aloud. Suck it up, champ. Now go out there and break her legs. Nora cheered in maddened glee. Ha, that's where you're wrong, Nora. Ruby proclaimed boldly with a smile. Naruto won't go anywhere near my legs. Ha 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 ha. Yang let out a roar of laughter. Blake tried and failed to hide laughs too. Thankfully no one paid attention to her luminant blush. What's funny? Ruby asked in confusion. Nothing. Yang replied with a snorted laughter escaping her. Can we please not do this? He turned to the supposed adult of their trio. I thought you told me not to show anyone what I could do, damn old man. Yeah? Well, there's nobody here to see but us, so get to impressing. Besides, this will be good for both of you, Crow responded, lazily waving his free hand while taking another incredibly long swig of his ale. How he could even properly speak with so much alcohol in his system was already impressive enough. Does he always consume that much? Pirraz asked to the relatives of the old huntsman. Yep, pretty much. I'm surprised he hasn't faced problems with his liver, Pirraz said astounded. Give it time, Weiss said pessimistically. Fine. Naruto brought up his one good arm and was suddenly encompassed in those dark blue flames. I guess I'll go all out too. Bring it. RWBY challenged head-on. Her other self will win this battle. RWBY felt the winds blow past her when he charged, her hood and cloak fluttering as a result. In an instant Naruto was in front of her, that one arm cocked back and ready to blow her to the other side of the clearing. Acting quickly, RWBY ducked and rolled behind him, watching him fly past her, a blur, while stabbing the blade of her scythe into the dirt to prevent herself from being tossed about like a ragdoll when the ground itself rattled as a result of his attack, landing, chunks of earth and dirt falling like rain. Whoa, hold back would ya? Yang frowned at the brute force Naruto unleashed. RWBY started to chuckle awkwardly as she soon realized that she might have bite more than she could have chewed. Nora was the only one who looked at the screen with excitement. What the heck was that? RWBY exclaimed to herself while watching him slowly rise, his silhouette slightly hidden behind a cloud of smoke and debris. That was the craziest use of aura she'd ever seen. Certainly, Weiss agreed with the younger RWBY. Kid! Hold back a little would ya? Crow called out, a rare frown on his face. This isn't like a life or death fight. You're not in the woods anymore. Naruto flinched at the sound of his voice. He's right. I'm not fighting Grim. The blonde steeled himself. But how do I hold back? He supposed going all out was out of the question. No shit, just try not kill her. Yang frowned at the screen. No one chastised her over her cursing given to the circumstances. You shouldn't space out. He blinked when a field of red petals blocked his vision. His hair ruffled as a light breeze went past his head, and in that instant, Naruto knew that RWBY was behind him. He spun on his heel and aimed a powerful kick, only for the end of his heel to meet the black steel of RWBY's scythe. That split second of weakness cost him, as a black boot suddenly railed into his gut, knocking him up and stunning him. RWBY used her momentum to kick off of his body, shifting Crescent Rose into its gun mode before going trigger-happy. In response, Naruto flared the blue flames licking at his skin, and when her dust bullets got too close, they vanished. Burned to ash. He wasted no time however, as the very second his feet touched the singed ground, Naruto exploded after her. RWBY grumbled at seeing her momentum killed, but she smiled as she still technically had the edge over best ninja buddy. From the sidelines, Crow's brow rose at the odd sight. Does his aura negate dust? If it does, then that's a really useful ability, Pyrrha said with intrigue. Could it be a semblance? Weiss asked in interest. Possibly? Blake frowned. She did find that blue aura rather weird to begin with. Well, one way to figure out is that we keep watching, John said. The knowledge will come sooner or later, Ren said in agreement with John. RWBY noted that this time he was much slower. It gave her enough time to think, and to properly react. Firing off a few more rounds, she watched him suddenly panic and duck, his feet tripping over themselves at the sudden movement, and the combined speed. He can't do that trick from before while he's moving. The girl grinned and proceeded to blast the now ducking and weaving blonde, keeping a noticeable distance between them. Haha, I have you now. RWBY yelled proudly as she had this fight in the bag. Nora was glaring at Naruto as the battle raged on. Where is the broken leg? Naruto made a sharp left, and then a right, and then another right. He ducked and jumped and rolled and avoided as many of the bullets as he could. I can't get close to her at this rate. I need to give a little more juice. The blonde grit his teeth and willed even more of his aura to make itself known, the warmth that sprouted from his navel encompassing the rest of his body in seconds. To RWBY, it looked as if he'd blinked out of existence. 1 second he was a comfortable bit away from her, dancing to the tune of her gun, and then next he was above, coming down on her with a flame-encompassed fist, a trail of blue following behind him. I can still hit him. She aimed Crescent Rose and found her mark, not faltering in the slightest. RWBY! Yang yelled in worry at the screen. Oh crud, RWBY gasped at the realization her other was about to get herself into. Many agreed, this was going to be a mess. It was at this point Crow knew he had to intervene. He vanished from his spot and appeared in between both of them, Fran's sealed form blocking Naruto's punch while he simultaneously redirected RWBY's shot. Crow sunk in a few feet from the force of the blow, a crater forming underneath, and the dust bullet tore a clear path all the way into the forest, never to be found again. Oh thank God, Yang sighed as her Uncle Crow once again saved the day. I almost became a pancake, RWBY said in shock as she saw the aftershock of the punch. Shame, Nora whispered. Blake's sensitive ears picked it up. Excuse me? Nothing. The cat faunus just rolled her eyes. Damn kids, I said to play nice. Naruto let out a breath and let himself fall, glad it was over with, the blue flames dissipating in seconds. He lost this one, no doubt about it. That bullet would have smacked him away before his punch ever could have hit its mark. Yeah. RWBY raised her fist in the air in victory, regaining from her earlier shock. You're not so tough. RWBY boasted a bit smugly. Boo. Nora voiced her displeasure. You suck, there's no broken legs. And Naruto would have curb-stomped you if he wasn't holding back. Nah, RWBY replied childishly, I would have still won. Nora was about to retort, but she was interrupted by her childhood friend as he attacked her with her nemesis, the spray bottle. Damn it, run. Behave, that was the young Stormflower wielder's response as he kept spraying her. RWBY however didn't seem to care that it was her win. In fact, she could barely contain her excitement. That was awesome. She was in front of him in the blink of an eye, her mouth moving a mile a minute. How did you do that with your aura? You moved so fast and you hit so hard I almost peed a little. That's gross, RWBY. Weiss was appalled at her leader revealing sensitive information towards her leader. RWBY was flustered in embarrassment as she spoke. It's another me, okay? And I said a little, so I didn't pee alright. That doesn't change much. Weiss countered. RWBY let out an embarrassed whine. Yan shook her head as she laughed. Her sister was way too honest sometimes. Pyrrha and Blake comforted the small redhead while the boys said nothing for they were too embarrassed to take part in the conversation. When you came out of nowhere, wow, seriously, you need to teach me how to do that. If you don't, I'll never ever forgive you, Anne. Well, it's wait, what? Naruto couldn't keep up. Crow watched the two interact and stifled a smile. RWBY was a bit overwhelming. Very true, Weiss said in a matter-of-fact tone, getting the rest of her teammates to agree, much to RWBY's hurt feelings. But it didn't look like anything Naruto could not handle, and it was nice to see her interact with someone who wasn't him or Yang. He watched them for a little longer before red eyes trailed away from the two kids and toward the arguably torn-up clearing that served as their ring. It was clear that RWBY would have won, but not if Naruto pulled out all the stops. That fight would have been over in one blow if that were the case. Did you hear that, RWBY? Weiss said with a rather smug smirk. Ha, told you so. Nora yelled as she was immediately sprayed again by Rin. Ignoring the Valkyrie, the Shni waited for the Rose's answer. RWBY, understandably embarrassed, said nothing as she soon retreated into her cape. Weiss chuckled at her actions along with her friends. Whatever that overcharged punch is, it takes a lot out of him. His gaze switched back to Naruto's sweaty and panting form. Although I can see how something like that would kill a group of Grimm in one swoop. And that weird of aura of his, was that just an accident? Crow sighed aloud and fought back the coming headache with another chug of his now empty bottle. Damn you, Taeyang, somehow this is all your fault. RWBY immediately got out of her hood as she retorted to the screen. Hey, don't blame Dad for all your problems, Uncle Crow. Right on, sis. Yang cheered with a smile. Blake grabbed the remote, and soon she had everyone's attention. Seeing that everyone was paying attention, the cat Fauna soon asked her friends, ready for the next episode? Everyone looked at each other immediately. They smiled and happily answered the question in unison, yes. Blake looked at the TV and said, Mr. Creepy Narrator Voice? Don't worry, it's coming. Chapter 4. A long journey ahead of you. Ooh, what kind of adventure? Yang asked curiously. After all, it's one of the main reasons why I set out to be a huntress in the first place. I bet it's going to be an awesome adventure. Yang gave her little sister 2 thumbs up in response. Blake smiled, happy to see an update in the story. Excited to watch the next chapter unfold before her, and what new secrets she would learn from Naruto. The city of Vale was huge, bigger than anything Naruto had ever laid eyes on, with sprawling skyscrapers and so many different kinds of people that he actually had to take a moment to process it all. He had traveled all around a good portion of Vale, but never had he been a part of such a massive group of people before. The streets were filled with all sorts of people, from young to old, faunus and human alike. It actually made him a little fidgety, and from what he could tell, RWBY wasn't doing so well with it either. She was visibly nervous and glancing around like someone would jump out and mug her at any second. Welcome to the city, you socially awkward kids. Yan spread her arms wide in a dramatic fashion. Many laughed at her joke while RWBY frowned, but not for long, as she was consoled by her socially awkward companion John. RWBY smiled in gratitude. To the socially awkward. Wait, if someone like RWBY is nervous, then I should be terrified. Relax, Naruto. RWBY always gets nervous in the city. Yang chuckled at hearing the younger blonde's thoughts. No, I don't. RWBY childishly denied that fact. Weiss gave her leader a skeptical look and voiced, really? Because if my memory serves me right, you always ask us to come along with you to the city to hang out. Every time. I just like hanging out with you guys, didn't know it bother you. Sorry, Weiss. The Shni heiress was taken by surprise by this. She didn't mean to sound rude about it. Well, it is fun when we hang out. RWBY smiled, hugging her best buddy. Weiss grumbled upon the contact of the young leader but relented. Naruto gulped when a particularly dangerous-looking old lady made eye contact with him, her beady eyes narrowing and a deep scowl on her wrinkled face. The woman mumbled something under her breath before turning away and disappearing into the crowd, but not before not so discreetly flipping him the finger. The fuck is your problem, Grandma? Yang scowled at the screen. Blake didn't say much, but she remembered a few old folks had this type of behavior against faunus. She remembered being flipped off by one when she was protesting for faunus rights in her white fan days. It surprised her more that the middle finger sign was universal. Pyrrha frowned in disapproval of the act. The elderly should be setting a good example for others. They shouldn't be spreading bad influence over the current age. Kill it before it lays eggs. Nora shouted at the racist grandma. Given her age, I think she already has. Nora clasped her hands to her cheeks and gasped in horror as Rin pointed out. What cruel world her alternate self must be living in. Ah, the big city. Crow took in a huge whiff of the air and sighed in content. You just can't beat that nauseating scent. It really stirs something deep inside of you, don't it, kids? See, can we please just keep moving? RWBY stuttered, something else entirely making her feel nauseous. You didn't like crowded places back then, huh? Yang remembered fondly. Yeah, but I got better, sort of, RWBY said in a small smile. She wasn't going to deny that she was still socially awkward. Groups of people she most definitely could not handle. As a matter of fact, pretty much anyone who wasn't already pre-approved by either Yang, mainly Yang, the only approval that matters, really. Ruby grinned at her older, as she embraced her in a hug. Or Crow was something she could not handle, or at the very least, she would be very reluctant to interact with him. It wasn't that she was afraid either, more that she was just awkward. Painfully so. We noticed, John quipped, but I get better guys. We know, her friends chorused. Only someone who hung out with her older sister or her uncle could ever be okay with whom she was, because that someone was more than likely a total weirdo themselves, just like them, and just like her. Never thought you would admit yourself as a weirdo. Ruby frowned at Weiss' comment. She knew she didn't mean it in malice, but it kind of felt like an insult. We're all weird and unique snowflakes. Many wanted to argue with Yang about that, but there's some oddballs in their circle of friends. Nora is a great example. Naruto was proof. He does have weird powers, everyone thought. Where to now, old man? Well, considering we've been traveling for 3 weeks, I'd really like to visit my favorite bar and get plastered. But since I have to keep an eye on you two, I can't do that. So, we're heading to my place instead, then Signal Academy for Ruby. For once he acts responsible. Yang smiled proudly at her uncle. A drunk he may be, but he had his depths. Weiss acknowledged this nugget of maturity of the veteran huntsman. Hopefully he could keep up the attitude. Naruto raised a brow. Signal? What's that? I'm not going to stick around in the chapter long, Ruby mumbled, forgetting that her other had school. Next to him Ruby groaned. Ugh, my school. Hey, education is important, little sis. Pira, run, Blake, and Weiss agreed with the blonde gauntlet wielder. Ruby just groaned. Education is boring. She received sympathetic gazes from both John and Nora. Crow placed his hands over his hips, grinned, leaning over to leer at the distraught girl. That's right, Ruby. Your break is pretty much over. You start school tomorrow, and I for one wouldn't want to intervene with your education. Wha? But uncle, you've already taught me all of that stuff. Everyone there is so boring and can barely put up a fight. Yeah, he did teach me all I need to know, Ruby grumbled. No excuses. She puffed her cheeks. No fair. I'd rather be at Beacon right now. Be careful what you wish for, Blake smiled, not letting this golden opportunity slip her by. Everyone laughed except Ruby, who was understandably embarrassed. Talk about prophetic. She crossed her arms and huffed, the earlier bow of anxious paranoia gone for the moment. Naruto deadpanned at the complete 180. I'm still getting used to that odd personality of hers. She's a mood swinger. No, I'm not young. Crow only laughed at her expense. Come along, children. I've got places to be and people that I don't want to unfortunately see. He reached for a fresh bottle of rum he'd been stashing for today and took a sip. Who? I'm going to need that. Many chuckled at the scene. It was pretty funny. Crow motioned them to follow as he led them through the commercial district of Vale, stumbling here and there. A downtrodden Ruby suddenly stepped past the confused blonde, following wordlessly behind her uncle, having already resigned herself to her unavoidable fate. Naruto swore he saw a cloud of rain hovering above her head. Still, he smiled and followed along too. This was a dozen times better than traveling alone after all. Crow's apartment was not what he expected. It was clean and tidy and actually pretty tasteful as far as interior design went. Given that it's him, it's typical to think he lives like a bum. Weiss was very much surprised and noted that Yang's comment was meant to her mostly. The dark-haired man swaggered in and threw his coat over the pale white couch, immediately moving for the kitchen and beginning to very eagerly rummage through his own pantry. Man, there's no place like home, he said, pulling out a box of from cereals, dark oats, a part of a balanced breakfast. Yeah, Pumpkin Pete's can shove it. John glared as Yang raised her fist up high as she approved her favorite brand of cereal. John believed Pumpkin Pete's was superior than Dark Oats, but kept his opinion to himself, not because he was afraid of Yang, because he didn't want to sidetrack their time in an argument. That was totally the reason. Hey, Pira frowned. While the cereal wasn't exactly healthy, but she still had the honor to appear in one of their boxes. Sorry, sweetheart, but your cereal is bad for everyone's health, and that's fact. Pira conceded as she too knew it was bad. She even remembers the bitter taste. Ruby instantly made for the couch and flipped the TV on, kicking her shoes off and crossing her legs as she flickered through the channels looking for something she'd like to watch. Put on wrestling. Many good matches starred in that year. Nora flashed with a dangerous smile, remembering the carnage. Tables, ladders, chairs, and no DQs matches were a big highlight for her. Ruby too agreed with the Valkyrie as she remembered the match of the year and in her opinion the best match between the sweeper, Omega Man Ken, and the moneymaker Okato. Naruto spared both of them a glance before awkwardly finding his place next to Ruby on the white leather. He would have liked to be less stiff about it, but this wasn't his home. He couldn't just do whatever he wanted. If he could do whatever he wanted, he would have already raided the fridge. You don't have to ask for permission. Many were baffled with Nora's guest manners. Crow jumped over the couch and landed to his right, kicking his shoes off in a manner that vaguely reminded him of what Ruby had just done before bringing the beer in his hand to his lips, taking a drink, and then following up with a spoonful of dark oats immediately after. Beer and cereal. No milk. He likes it that way for some reason. The sisters found it weird but grew used to it. Naruto couldn't believe his eyes. Believe it! Yang and Ruby shouted, giggling afterwards. The manliest meal on earth, kid. Never forget that. Oh. RWBY flipped back to the game show network. Whose horizontal line is it anyway is on? Boo. Jan, RWBY and Nora jeered at the mention of the crappy show. EW, no way. That show is dorky. We should watch something exciting, like pro wrestling. Yeah, girl. Nora nodded in approval. Crow's brow twitched, and he calmly placed his drink and snack down before lunging at the girl with the clear intent of taking the remote by force. RWBY expected this, however, and the red-eyed man only captured the pillow ornament instead, a cluster of red petals falling down over him. Too slow, RWBY said smugly. You damn brat. Give it to me or so help me. RWBY blew a raspberry at him before tossing the plastic his way. The older rose smile at her younger's response. Fine. Here you go, stingy old man. Well, he is old. Many chuckled as no one could argue with RWBY about that fact. Crow winced. Ah, damn it, RWBY, not you too. She has converted to the Church of Naruto. Nora laughed, joined by her friends. We were going to call him that eventually, right, Rubes? RWBY nodded as she high-fived her older sister. From his spot, Naruto flashed a grin and spared the redhead a thumb up. They'd watched a movie, Rushing Hour 3, and he was in a daze because of it. Ah, I remember that movie. RWBY smiled at the fond memories. Watching a movie, it was the most normal and bland thing he'd ever done in the past year alone. Naruto couldn't believe how normal today had been in comparison to his previous ones. In fact, he hadn't killed a Grimm in almost a month. That was a new record for him. They usually found him at least once in the day, mainly at night, and he would dispatch them with a few wild blows. Few were ever smart or fast enough to dodge, and then he'd be on his way by morning, looking for more empty leads and pointless clues. Now he was here. Many blinked at hearing Naruto's background with the Grimm. They found it odd that he was easily chased by them so often, but they remembered the beast that lurked behind and reminded themselves that he was probably the cause the blonde's troubles. All right. That was pretty good. Crow sat up and cheered to himself before addressing them both, a half-smirk on his features. Now, I've got to run off and run an errand real quick, so don't drink all the liquor in the cabinets. I mean, that is if you can even reach. He eyed Naruto, and was promptly gifted with a stern finger standing at attention. You're underage. Many smiled at Pira's overprotective motherly nature. The man only laughed boisterously in response and clapped the blonde over the shoulder. I'll be back soon. Oh, and I'll kill you if anything weird happens. Jan laughed as RWBY squawked in embarrassment. How could her uncle joke like that? Naruto blinked once. What? Jan laughed harder at the blonde's obliviousness. She knew she would expecting this kind of response. To her, Naruto didn't seem the type to get social cues or suggestions, though she did admit she didn't rule him out as a pervert, but not in a harmful way. Weiss found his obliviousness cute along with Blake and Pira. Pira was happy that Naruto wasn't thinking of doing adulterous acts. Children should remain innocent until proper age. Later, Crow was already out the door, his weapon and coat both gone, leaving a flabbergasted blonde and a blushing RWBY behind. That stupid jerk. He's the worst role model in the world. What were you thinking, RWBY? RWBY blushed as she scowled at her sister. I'm surprised you even have these kind of thoughts, RWBY. Weiss grinned as her leader sent her a betrayed look. It's Uncle Crow's fault, not mine, okay? Everyone chuckled as they saw RWBY's blush match the color of her cape, very much embarrassed with the topic. Naruto could only nod in agreement. Crow was powerful, but he was also an alcoholic who failed to realize he was mostly hanging out with two preteens. The things he said to other people, to himself, Naruto stifled a shiver at the flashbacks. Crow had an incredible talent for stringing together curse words like he were writing a grand, intricate symphony of unmatched proportions. It was arguably impressive. It still is, Jan said in agreement with her fellow whiskered blonde. They'd sat there for almost a half-minute before Naruto finally spoke up. Ooh, making the first move. RWBY hissed at her sister as everyone grinned and watched the scene. So what do you want to do now? Oh, let's play Dr. Jan. Weiss and the rest of her friends burst in laughter between the two siblings. RWBY spared him a glance and smiled weakly. We could order a pizza with his card and watch pro wrestling? Instead of Jan who commented, it was Weiss who did. How romantic. It isn't. Nora thumbed up, getting odd glances from her friends, failing to realize that Weiss was being sarcastic. She is weird sometimes. RWBY blushed deeper. Her other was only trying to be friendly. Naruto stared at her, and she stared back, then he nodded. Okay, sounds good. Crow dialed the number, put the phone up to his ear, and waited. Wonder who he's calling? RWBY asked immediately, trying to make her friends forget about her and Naruto. Jan noticed RWBY's intention but didn't speak on it. Maybe he's calling Dad. RWBY perked at that. It was plausible. Ring, ring, ring. What the hell do you want? That's not Dad. RWBY agreed with her older sister. Blake noticed the voice being female and asked, Does your uncle have a lover or something? RWBY and Jan frowned. They knew their uncle was a flirt, but they always strayed away from his conversations when talking about girls. Not that we know of at that time. We know he's single right now. Weiss knew that voice, and it was the reason she remained quiet about it. She wanted to be wrong, but she knew that voice anywhere. The dark-haired man grinned to himself, his back moving from the wall he'd been leaning against as he made his way outside of the bar. Hello to you too, gorgeous. You sound as stern and heartless as ever. Have you missed me? I've missed yo. Ruby and Yang mumbled and rolled their eyes. There he goes again. Weiss blanched at the overfamiliarity Crow was speaking to his might-be sister. You have exactly 15 seconds to get to the point. After those 15 seconds are over, I will hang up, change my number, and have you arrested if you ever call me again. Understand? Wow, wondered what Uncle Crow did to piss her off so badly. Yang grinned at the threat. Not lovers, Blake confirmed in her mind. Ruby's silver eyes squinted. That bossy tone sounded familiar. Crow blanched. Wait, what? 12 seconds. Winter, please, see, come on, this is important. So that's her name. I knew it. Yang was interrupted by the sudden revelation by the Schneeris. Knew what? What's going on, Weiss? Pyrrha asked in confusion. Crow is talking to my sister, Winter, Weiss revealed to her friends. Yang whistled while the news surprised everyone. Whoa, our uncle knows your sister, weird. Weiss agreed with her leader on that. Many began to stay quiet as they wanted to see how the scene was about to unfold. 9 seconds. Okay. I found this kid, he's missing an arm. I want to know if your industrious family could work your magic for a few favors. Weiss perked a brow at this but stayed quiet and listened on. There was a pause on the other line. You found a kid? Yup, and you're willing to trade favors with me, with us, in order to see if we would be willing to build a prosthetic for this kid whom you found. Oh, of course, now I remember those, Weiss said as she remembered the mechanical prosthetics her family company helped manufactured. It made sense why Ruby's uncle was calling her sister in the first place in a way she could guess. Remember what? Ruby asked. Your uncle is getting Naruto a prosthetic mechanical arm our company helped made, Weiss enlightened to her leader. First time hearing this, Blake said. That's because my father only shares it with the Atlas military. The Schnee frowned as she had to remind herself. He could have helped so many people, but her father was only interested in his own interests. Yup. That's about the gist of it. Are you drunk? That's a good question. Everyone chuckled at Yang's joke. I'm always drunk, true, but that's not the point. Can you or can you not? Another long pause. What's so special about this kid? Why do you care, Crow? And why us? The watchers inched closer to hear the old huntsman's answer. The man pursed his lips at her questions. He took a moment to really consider them before he sighed, running his free hand through his hair and fixing the bangs that normally obscured his dark crimson orbs. All excellent questions, he said. The kid, Naruto, there's something off about him. I can't really put my finger on it. He isn't inherently bad, but he attracts Grimm like a magnet. A big fucking magnet. I've been keeping them off of his trail by using my aura as a cloak, but they're bound to find him at some point. He needs to be able to defend himself, which brings me to my second question. Her calm, smooth voice cut through him. Why do you care? Geez, can't Uncle Crow just be nice for once? Weiss smiled apologetically to Ruby, but her sister was a skeptical person as she always felt there had to be a reason for something. Crow hesitated, his eyes narrowing. Because he's strong. Even for someone his age, he's strong. Someone like him is going to change things. I want to make sure he's on the right side when that time comes. That was a good point, and many were happy that Naruto was on the good side. He seemed like a nice person after all. The right side? And whose side is the right side? The good side, Ruby frowned. Weiss just chuckled awkwardly. Winter, he trailed off dangerously. The conversation was already steering in a direction he didn't particularly like. Fine. Last one then, why us? Why not anybody else? Because you're the best. And I've got a good feeling it's going to take the best to crack this kid. Ha, talk about stroking someone's ego. Yang smirked as she looked at a similar Schnee. Weiss could only glower at Yang for the accusation. Okay, we'll meet him. I won't guarantee it won't be a waste of your time. Nice. That's all I needed to hear. See you soon, doll. How rude. Yang and Ruby apologized for the uncle's behalf to Weiss, staring angrily at the screen at the smug Crow. Don't call me doll, you pathetic, narcissistic, pervertedly. All except Weiss chuckled as they watched Crow hung up. Crow hung up in the midst of her rant and smiled. Man, he loved messing with that woman. He checked the time and figured he probably should have been heading out by now, but this was his first time back in 3 weeks. He had 3 weeks of missed drinking at his favorite bar to make up for, and damn him if he wouldn't. With a fire burning in his eyes and his heart set on the matter, Crow turned and entered the drunken Raven, relishing in the cheers of his fellow alcoholics as he made his way through. These were his people. Weiss growled at the sight of the drunkard enjoying his time, while Ruby and Yang chuckled at his typical behavior. So when do you think he'll be coming back this time? Ruby hummed aloud to herself. Well, knowing him, probably sometime between 4 and 5 in the morning, Naruto deadpanned in response. Well, when he ditched us back in Mosstown, he was gone for the entire night. Geez, I'm sorry Ruby and Yang, but your uncle is quite irresponsible. Pyrrha frowned at the old huntsman behavior. It's cool, no offense taken really. She shrugged and then burped loudly, to which the blonde nodded in respect. Yang and Blake chuckled while Weiss blanched at her leader's indecent behavior. Nora and John too nodded in respect while Pyrrha tried to judge but couldn't help herself but to giggle a little. Rin remained neutral despite his smile saying otherwise. 2 empty boxes of pizza sat in between them, along with numerous empty cans of pop, and both Naruto and Ruby were currently sprawled out with a hand nurturing their respective food baby, happy and content. The ending credits to the movie Freezing were playing in the background and for the most part, things were quite comfortable between them. Ugh, show some manners. RWBY blew a raspberry much to Weiss' displeasure. The blonde sneaked a peek at the nearly comatose redhead, who hid a yawn behind her hand, and he bit his lip. It had been bugging him for a while and now was as good a time as any. Yangs perked a brow as she watched the event unfold. She had her eye on him. Hey RWBY? Silver eyes met his blue. How come? Naruto paused, looking unsure. How come you never said anything about my arm? Most people underestimate me because of it. Everywhere he went, everyone he talked to, it was always the same thing. His arm. The group gave their sympathetic glances at the blonde. RWBY just kept quiet as she was confident her other knew how to answer him. They'd ask him a dozen questions and treat him as if he were made of dough. There were few people who actually looked at him like he was a normal person and not some fragile creature. Crow was one of those few, although the man more insulted him for it than anything else, always expressing how he would never know the awe and wonder that came with switching hands. That man truly was a terrible influence. Forget kicking him in the balls, I'm going to crush them, Yan declared as her glowed red. Get line, Weiss brandished her heels, they know where they were going to aim at. An old crow from a tavern had to scratch his itching balls once again. I hope it's not a rash. Oh well. RWBY made a face. I've never really thought about it. I don't know actually. RWBY smiled sadly. She remembered she wasn't very good at answering questions back then. Her teammates and friends consoled her, knowing that she had probably had good answer. No one blamed her after all. The question was rather random. Naruto sighed, dipping his head in defeat, his long shaggy locks hiding his gloomy expression. It was a weird question to ask, but I suppose it's because of my uncle. He perked up at that, his question written all over his face. I trust him a lot, and if he thinks you're strong then you are. I wasn't just going to underestimate you. Besides, I don't know, there's something weird about you. It makes me want to like you. You're pretty mysterious, you know. The room exploded with a loud wolf whistle from Yang Xiaolong herself. Red alert! Red alert! My little sister is making a move on the resident hot blonde. RWBY blushed into crimson color of her cape as everyone was given her cat smile. Weiss was taken by surprise, who knew her leader had it in her. Nora laughed as she watched the event unfold. I think you look cute together, RWBY. Pyrrha teased much to RWBY's embarrassed whines. What should we call this ship? RWBY gasped at Blake's suggestion, who was grinning the whole way. Spiraling Rose? Ren added in the teasing at the young leader of Team RWBY. Oh, I know, Maelstrom of Roses. John joined in. What, he couldn't help himself. Good ship names, guys, but I go with the latter. Sorry, Ren. The Stormflower bowed as he did not took offense with Yang's decision. John pumped his fist in victory. You guys are so mean. RWBY finally spoke. Yan wiggled her brows as she replied, well, you're the one that made a move on him. RWBY blushed deeper as she buried her head under her hood. I just meant it in a friendly way. You think so, but who knows, maybe your other likes him. RWBY said nothing as she glared at her meanest sister. Naruto sat upright, a bright blush on his cheeks, although thankfully his hair worked its magic. He'd let it grow out to hide his marks, but right now it was serving an even greater purpose. The flag has been raised. Yan high-fived her partner Blake in approval, much to her leader's betrayal. A silence sat between them after that, and for a moment neither of them broke it. Then Naruto laughed. Rejected! Nora yelled as RWBY was aghast. Everyone laughed but soon died out as they wondered if that's what really happened. If it was, Yan was going to beat him up. She didn't care if he was on the other side. No one rejects her cute little sister. RWBY spared him a glance and raised a brow. Are you okay? She asked warily. The blonde shook his head and grinned. No, I guess it really doesn't matter. Thanks for being so cool, RWBY. These past 3 weeks were some of the most fun he'd ever had, and it was partially thanks to her. With that thought in mind, Naruto brought up a fist and waited patiently, the happy grin still on his face. Oh, okay. No problem. She pounded her knuckle into his and smiled. It was nice to be the cool one. RWBY's blush drained slightly as she smiled, as she too thought it was nice to be the cool one. Everyone stopped messing with the young leader as they too smiled at the heartwarming scene. They showered RWBY with gestures of affections, and she didn't protest to any single one. Chapter 5, Awaken I. Ominous, Blake commented, her attention immediately grabbed by the name of the chapter. It was worse at night, Crow surmised. Everyone's attention now was grabbed by the first sentence, and watched closely to the chapter. Naruto didn't know it, but he mumbled in his sleep, tossed and turned too, like he were having a terrible nightmare. The members of Team RWBY and JNPR frowned in concern for the blonde, wondering what nightmares were haunting him. Blake most of all wondered if Naruto's nightmare had something to do with his past. It happened more often than not, and those nights Crow himself didn't sleep a wink. A single mistake in his aura shroud and that malicious intent would alert every Grimm within a 12-mile radius to their location, and that spelled trouble with a capital F. Fuck. Nora. Oh, back off, Pyrrha, the Valkyrie waved dismissively. No, I will not. The magnetism user stood her ground. She will not stop until Nora used decent and well-mannered vocabulary instead of her current vulgar one. Heated glares of determination were shared. A new feud had begun, and their friend were watching them in interest, placing bets on who would be the first to dish out the blow. One of the many reasons they couldn't just fly or take a boat, and instead had to settle for the scenic route to Atlas, Well, they sure are heading fast towards Atlas, Weiss commented in interest of the development. Ruby mumbled childishly, she wanted her other go with them. Stupid school. Maybe you'll meet him? The Shmi wasn't sure to whether agree or disagree with her female blonde friend. I admit, I would like to meet him. I think he would get along with me, Weiss confidently spoke. Ooh, hear that, Ruby? Jan nudged her younger sister's shoulder. Weiss is trying to steal your man. He's not my boyfriend. Ruby hissed in embarrassment. Jan snickered. She admitted she never had this much fun since yoking her cape when they were kids. Ruby frowned at her sister before moving on and asked her best buddy, Weiss, what makes you think Naruto would like you? Hearing Ruby's question, everyone hushed to hear Weiss answer. Weiss scoffed at the question. Ruby, please. This is me we're talking about. Yeah, I know. That's why I asked in the first place. Shots fired. Nora blew an air horn as everyone was grinning over the burn Ruby delivered to the resident Ice Queen. Weiss scowled at her leader, her teeth gnashing at the insult. What did I do? The scythe wielder asked innocently as teammates still glared heatedly. The Shni-era sighed as she noticed Ruby's expression being genuinely confused. Nothing, you get off the hook this time. Many were disappointed with the response. They were hoping for physical blows and verbal spouts to be traded. Weiss and everyone turned back to see the show. Many missed the sly grin from Ruby as she too then faced towards the TV. They'd been on the road for a month now, and he'd honestly never pictured it would be this difficult. In between the lack of sleep and that odd aura, even drinking couldn't help him. A scowl made itself at home on his pale face. That vile, red, hateful energy, it seeped underneath his skin somehow, crawling about, filling his head with dark thoughts. Crow's eyes narrowed as he watched the sleeping blonde who was unaware of the bloody haze surrounding him. Creepy. Many agreed with John as they saw the silhouette of malice shrouded around Naruto. Count your blessings, kid. If they'd have found you first, you'd be dead, or worse, he mumbled, taking another swig of the silver canister in his hand after. This kid threw everything he knew about aura right out of the window. What happens when you get them back, kid? Crow had become quite used to Naruto. He had become used to the bright grins and the upbeat laugh. The wonder and curiosity. But that wasn't Naruto. That was an empty shell. Everyone in the room frowned at Crow's comment when they heard that. What if the real Naruto was underneath this bright made-up exterior? What if that murderous aura was actually his all along, and he was just repressing it on accident? No one spoke after hearing that. They admitted that the old huntsman's word may hold some truth, but they also refused to believe it. They wanted to believe that Naruto was a good person. Blake was pessimist at many things, but she quietly hoped that the evil energy wasn't him. She held on to the theory that it belonged to that thing that lurked behind him. Crow's thoughts would have veered even further down the path had a slight rustling not broken his staring contest with the fire. The first thing he laid eyes on were two balls of vermilion red, with pupils that didn't quite look right on a human. Weiss shared the same thoughts as she was reminded of the red eyes once again of the opening intro of the show. Blake frowned, worried for Naruto's state. Yang and Ruby wondered if the blonde protagonist was going to attack their uncle. They hoped that that was not the case. I had another nightmare. Many sighed in relief, seeing that Naruto was still lucid. Crow blinked once. Naruto stood there, a frown on his face and cold sweat dripping down his oddly marked cheek. His eyes didn't look menacing, but the change was off-putting to say the least. He however didn't even seem aware that his bright blue was now blood red. Yeah, even I didn't know that my eyes turned red with my semblance activated at first, Yang shared with her friends. It's also pretty helpful, since it lets me know when you're mad. Yang chuckled as she brushed her little sister's hair in affection. Crow fought the urge to scowl when he needed to forcibly relax his tense shoulders. I'm just tired, he told himself. Yeah, Uncle Crow, Naruto is a good boy. Everyone laughed at Yang's humorous joke. For some reason they found it funny to hear it. Sighing, the hunter patted the spot next to him and beckoned the blonde over. Naruto didn't hesitate to take his usual spot, and with his eyes staring into the flames, the blonde told his story. Everyone inched closer to the screen, not wanting to miss a word or detail. I was on a bridge. It was cold, and I couldn't feel my feet. There was a boy in my arms. I don't remember his name, but I knew him. He was my friend. Naruto said the words as if he were in a trance, a tiny frown on his face. He was my friend and he was dying. There was another boy. He was older than us, and he was wearing a mask. He could move through mirrors and could manipulate the ice. And he was killing us. In the end I was stupid and I didn't listen, and my friend, he saved my life. Naruto was almost breathless at this point. After that I felt angry and scared, and like I didn't want to die here. And then I heard it, I think for the very first time. How embarrassing. You really are weak. Here, let's see what you do with this gift. Everyone shuddered at how Naruto's voice turned from normal to demonic sounding. Everyone had a good idea what part of his story Naruto was mentioning. The song intro did show him fighting a person with a mask who governed ice at his call. They had the feeling that it was the demonic voice that helped Naruto pull out a win at the end. Crow whistled, already knowing what he was referring to. It was the voice. The variable that made this whole thing so damn confusing. Man, you sure that's just a dream? The blonde remained silent at his question, and Crow's stifled sighed. Alright, and what happened after that? Naruto looked back at him after a moment, and Crow was pleasantly surprised to greet that familiar blue again. I like them better as blue. Weiss eased as Naruto's eye turned to their original sky blue color. I don't know. That's when I woke up. Everyone groaned and mumbled, but none of them were disappointed as Blake. She was hoping for more. Guess she wasn't getting it anytime soon. Ah, come on, kid, you were just getting to the best part. Ugh, I know. Blake shared her sentiments with the veteran huntsman. She hated cliffhangers. Naruto scowled. That's not funny. It kinda is. Yang smiled. She knew that her uncle was trying to alleviate Naruto's concerns with some comedy. Who said I'm trying to be funny? I'm being serious here. When Naruto continued to glare, he pushed the kid with one arm and groaned. Damn kid, where did your sense of humor go? Did you suddenly forget that too? No, I didn't. The blonde bit back. I just don't think it's cool to try and crack lame jokes in the middle of something serious. Exactly, Weiss wholeheartedly agreed with the blonde. Ruby Blue Raspberry. Come on Naruto, be cool, don't be all uptight like Weiss. Loosen up, dude. The Shni glared at her leader. Come on Rubes, let Naruto decide for himself. He can be loose and tight at the same time. Blake gave her partner in battle a dry stare, not missing the innuendo. Yang smiled at her faunus friend with a cheesy grin and a two-finger salute. Crow shrugged. Sucks for you, kid, but you're hanging with a guy who once tried stand-up at a funeral. Oh my god! Weiss wondered if this man even had a soul. Nora laughed while everyone was shocked to learn that the old huntsman would do such an act. Yang's right brow twitched agitatedly while Ruby was trying to comprehend her uncle's action, much to her shock as well. Sadly, no answer was still not found. You have no soul. Probably the only answer, Weiss agreed with the blonde. You don't need a soul to fight Grim. He's not wrong in a way, Pyrrha said unsurely. Now get back to bed. We've got an annoyingly long trip ahead of us and tomorrow we're crossing the Rainbow Rapids. Well, more like you'll be carrying me since you can run on water and all that jazz. I'm pretty heavy too, all muscle weight, so you should definitely rest up. Yang and Ruby smirked as they couldn't wait to see the scene of their Uncle Piggyback riding on 14-year-old kid that was barely half his size. Screw you. I'll make you eat those words. Yang blanched. She hoped her uncle wasn't a pedophile. Rainbow Rapids was as every bit as rainbow-like as Naruto expected, with colors of every creed and misty rainbows of every size spanning the wide river. And of course, splashing torrents of deadly waters that could send you tumbling into a pit of sharp rocks where you'll be beaten and torn to death. To accentuate that beauty, truly its beauty cannot be matched. Everyone chuckled at Ren's sense of humor. You're actually not that heavy. Well, his body is made of 80% of alcohol, Jiang quipped. Ruby snickered as she watched the scene. It was funnier than she imagined. Maybe you're just a freak. Someone sensitive. Weiss smirked. She was hoping for Crow to say another mean-spirited comment to make Naruto feel justified in him throwing him off. Uncle Crow does have feelings, you know. The Shni sighed as she would have never guessed. Sometimes Ruby missed a lot in her social cues. Naruto contemplated shaking the older man off of his shoulders as he carefully jogged over the unsteady waters, but decided against it. Weiss frowned sadly at this. Her feelings were shared with Yang and Nora for two different reasons, of course. He had become rather used to Crow and his seemingly endless wallet. Especially the wallet. Eating berries and fruit got stale after a while. How much longer until we reach Atlas? Naruto asked. About a week, maybe two if I get drunk enough. How helpful of you. Weiss grumbled, feeling sad that Naruto had to support that deadweight longer. Naruto stifled a groan. You know you still haven't told me why we're going there. He added dryly. I did tell you. I told you it's a surprise. Yay, surprises. Ruby smiled widely. She liked surprises. Naruto began to reconsider his earlier idea of shaking the man off and leaving him to drown. He wrestled with the idea, but once again decided against it. It's okay, Naruto. I'll forgive you if you throw him off. Yang cooed, supportingly, being backed by the glyph's master herself. The food and company was worth it. With his mind made up, the blonde picked up the pace. Eager to get the smell of booze away from his nose, he dashed in a beeline, skipping and jumping over whirlpools and jagged rocks, his one arm holding a simple blade Crow had purchased for him close and at the ready. As dangerous as this all was for anybody else, Naruto couldn't help but marvel at the beauty. Many agreed with the visual perspective Naruto was showing towards them on the screen. Why is this place so famous? Crow deadpanned. You mean other than the dozens of rainbows and the death trap? He unhooked one arm and took a quick shot, swigging the inside of his mouth before downing it entirely. Well, there is a rumor that a giant sea king sleeps underneath these waters. It's only a rumor though. A sea king? Naruto echoed. A creature of Grim. Crow explained. Commonly referred to as a sea dragon. They're rare and powerful creatures. They used to plague the waters of every river and ocean until the Hunter Society was formed. Yang palmed her face hard as she heard that bit of information, cursing him. Weiss' jaw dropped at the utter carelessness of the huntsman before her. Everyone was worried, praying for safe travel for Naruto, of course. Crow can die somewhere else, honestly. Naruto felt a sinking feeling in his gut. And what makes people think one of those things is still here? Crow pondered the question before responding. Well, the rapids are the easiest way to cross over to Atlas without taking a boat or an airship, but most people avoid them because of how dangerous the area is. Even experienced hunters don't come near without a team and proper gear. With every word Crow spoke, the sinking feeling worsened. The 4 kingdoms are the only real safe havens, everywhere else runs the risk of an attack by Grimm. The borders are the worst. Most of them are left unguarded because of how dangerous it is. Okay, so why are we here? Because I'm exhausted, and I barely slept for 4 weeks. I don't know. Just giddy up or something. He's dead to me, Yang proclaimed with absolute monotone in her voice. Naruto didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess. Don't throw him off. Don't throw him off. Don't throw him off. Naruto repeated the mantra. Throw him off, no one will see you. You claim it to be an accident. Yan fully supported Weiss' suggestion of eliminating her worthless deadbeat uncle. RWBY could only smile somberly. She wouldn't hold it against Naruto for doing it. Amazingly enough, the two crossed the waters without much trouble, and Naruto was glad to let the eccentric alcoholic off of his back. Wow, talk about a skip. Many agreed with John at the progression of the chapter. As he rolled his shoulder, smiling when a satisfying pop echoed, the blonde couldn't help but muse aloud. You know, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I usually have pretty shit luck. Hey! You're just a kid. You mind your tongue, so that's where you got it from. RWBY nodded in acknowledgement as Weiss and one of her friends understood her swear-word-free tongue despite coming from Crow of all people. This time, Naruto deadpanned. You're an alcoholic with a bad temper who picks on cripples. Besides, what's the worst that could have happened? One must not tempt fate, Ren sighed sadly for Naruto. He hoped the blonde would make it out okay. As if on cue, a beast covered in thick black scales burst out of the waters, glowing red eyes glaring menacingly at the 2 ant-sized humans below. Its massive jaw unhinging, and it unleashed a deafening roar that echoed for miles and sent waves crashing against the bank. A set of wings so huge and so wide that from their position on the ground the bat-like appendages blocked out the light of the sun. Ren looked at the size of the Grimm and concluded sadly, Your adventure has been pleasant, Naruto. Wow dude, don't write him off just yet. John laughed awkwardly. He hoped Ren would never do that to him. Yeah, he's got good ol' Uncle Crow with him. RWBY smiled optimistically. Many wanted to share the scythe wielder's optimism, but they realistically were concerned nonetheless. Exactly as the rumors said yet again. Crow uttered 2 words as he shook of the excess water that splashed all over his person. Fuck me. Uncle Crow, language. Yang laughed at RWBY despite the grim situation at hand. See? You're where I get it from. That's no excuse. Pyrrha frowned. She knew Naruto was just using as an escape way to curse. You shut your mouth. This is your fault. Don't you mean yours? Weiss reminded critically. Naruto raised a finger and opened his mouth to say something, but found the words dying on his lips. Well, that may be true, but you brought us here in the first place. Exactly. The man brought a hand up to rub his temples and sighed, his free arm flicking the trigger of his weapon, the gears shifting until Fran took its sword form. How hard do you think you can punch that thing? Can you make it open its mouth? You can't touch a sea dragon from the outside by any normal means, you've got to kill it from the inside. Brutal. Everyone took a step back from the Valkyrie as her bloodlust spiked in joy. Naruto grinned and extended his arm. I'll make it barf, ew. Naruto had better take a shower if he was going to do that. Please don't. Whatever else would have been said was interrupted by the sharp claws of the sea dragon smashing itself over they previously occupied, rubble and smoke blocking the scene. Naruto threw himself out of harm's way in the nick of time, his back colliding with the dirt as he rolled and came up into a crouch, blue eyes narrowed. It's pretty fast for its size, he whispered to himself, before breaking into a powerful sprint. The blonde channeled as much aura into his legs as they could manage before leaping, the ground cracking underneath the force of his takeoff. He soared and then extended his feet, prepping them for a rough landing atop the dragon's trunk of an arm. A red blur rushed past him and Naruto could just barely make out a haughty, "Keep up, kid." Grunting, Naruto's body took on the familiar blue hue and he bolted after the smirking crow. I'm trusting you to do this. Give it all you've got. He heard the man cry out before he took to the skies, both hands over Fran as he lifted the blade high up and it began to glow. Everyone was at the edge of her seat. They were going to see a true veteran huntsman in action with the help of his unofficial mystical ninja sidekick. They wondered what type of skills they would showcase to them. Naruto nodded and then clenched his fist, a roar escaping him as the blue hue exploded into a coat of flames. The energy rushed throughout his body and then began to concentrate over his shaking fist, a thin trail of neon blue following behind him. His feet became a blur, and when he jumped, he gave it his all, eyes wide and expression fierce as he cocked his fist back and launched his attack. When his fist met the scale of the dragon, it was as if a bomb had just gone off. He poured all he could into his limb without outright destroying it. The sea dragon's entire frame shook, but it did not waver. What? Everyone said in shock. They were expecting the move to actually hurt the beast. What? Naruto froze up, outright glaring at the tiny dent his attack had made. He'd put all he could into that and expected results. He did not expect to fail. Without any time to prepare and in his shock, he began to fall, eyes wide and still firmly set on what he deemed as outright pathetic even as gravity took him. The watchers gasped as they watched Naruto fall down slowly before them. Naruto! He fell and fell and fell for what seemed like forever, and for whatever reason, he was reminded of that night. Everyone then visited Naruto's flashback and were soon revisited by a familiar scene in Chapter 1. Damn you, if I could fight back I'd slaughter you all. What was about to happen was clear, he was going to die. He was too weak. Too injured. And most of all, he was outnumbered. There was no way out. With a grimace, he steeled his resolve as best as he could. In spite of this, however, a single thought ran through his mind. I don't want to die here. In that very instant a fire spread throughout his body. It was not comforting or warm. It did not feel natural. It felt like fire. It was fire. It burned and consumed everything in its path, taking him over. His once cloudy vision grew sharp, and despite his pain, the aches that plagued him gradually vanished until nothing remained. The Grimm lunged at him, blood eyes flashing in the darkness, and something batted them away like flies. A mass of bubbly red, darker and much fouler than the crimson of the Grimm's eyes. He heard the ear-piercing shrieks, and watched them burn away like cinders before sleep took him. His entire being exhausted. And right before he could see, or feel, or think no more, a malevolent voice whispered into his ears, "How amusing. When will you learn, child? That without me you are nothing? Without me you are weak." No one spoke, they were too transfixed over the events that were occurring before their eyes. Every revelation about the blonde made him equally more mysterious. Crow overestimated the extent of Naruto's abilities. He had forgotten that despite his amazing potential, Naruto was still just a boy, one with minimal control over his own ability. A sea dragon. You thought he could take down a fucking dragon? You damn idiot! Crow rushed toward the blonde, his previous attack forgotten as he rushed to save the unprepared blonde from the gruesome death below. But he was too far, and far too unprepared. With wide eyes he watched the stupefied blonde fall as if in slow motion. Damn it, Naruto! The sea dragon roared, and Crow watched as a multitude of familiar beady eyes began to spring up from behind the cover of the surrounding woods, waiting patiently as the greater Grimm provided a show. All aware that they, being himself and Naruto, were the dragon's prey. For now the weaker Grimm would not intervene. Then the impossible happened. Weiss frowned as she wondered what that meant. She had this dreadful feeling that the impossible was something gruesome down the lines. Before his body hit the torrents of rushing water below, it was consumed in a red bubble. Crow had seen it happen, and when he landed over a nearby chunk of rock, a sinking feeling overcame him. Somehow the world seemed to come to a halt. The air felt thicker, heavier. Even the dragon stopped his thrashing, a low hum emitting from its thick neck as it watched the bubbling waters below. It felt as if something unfamiliar was now with them, something hateful, something that did not belong. Naruto? What responded was not the happy-go-lucky kid he'd grown used to. A red hand, hazy and bubbly like churning blood, the size of the dragon's own, it burst from the water without warning, steam emitting from where the liquid met the burning aura. The human-like hand swung itself like a rope and latched onto the torso of the Grimm, a hissing noise telling the wide-eyed Crow that whatever that coat of malice was, it was acidic to the touch. More steam obscured the area and Crow had to narrow his eyes just to see. The beady red eyes of the Grimm were easy to make out, and the dragon's stature was even easier to spot, but there was something else now. A figure, hunched over with one arm extended. Everyone's bugged out in shock as they saw the malefic bubbly red appendage burst out. They only stared at awe at the way it grabbed tight on the sea dragon Grimm before them. It looked like a human, but are those ears? Really, they look like horns to me. Some argued with John about the reddish figure hidden over the steam, but in a matter of perspective they did look like horns, at least in some angles. The sea dragon flapped its mighty wings and the steam was blown away in seconds. What was revealed was something Crow had never laid eyes on in all of his years as a hunter. Pyrrha gasped, summing up everyone's reaction as they clearly saw who it was behind that evil power. Naruto, if he could even be called that now. He looked like a monster. Everyone frowned. They didn't want to label him like that, but sadly Naruto's feral features and hunched bestial pose wasn't taking away that monster title anytime soon. The silhouette of a creature surrounding his already altered form was anything but human, the two long rabbit-like ears twitching above his wild shaggy hair, and the slender tail flickering behind him as if it were a sentient being even less. The second he laid eyes on it, Crow knew that this was what was hiding underneath that cheerful smile. A being that emitted more raw hatred and unrivaled malice than any army of Grimm he'd ever gone up against. Crow could feel his heart pound and his body tense, his finger a single twitch away from sending Fren into overdrive. This Grimm. This was not Naruto. He's not a Grimm, Ruby whispered lowly. Her friend heard her, and they desperately wanted to agree. The creature unleashed roar that rivaled that of the dragons. The ferocity of his deafening roar startled the teams, amazed and frightened by the vocals of the beast-like blonde had produced, and made a pulling motion. The massive limb latched onto the dragon's torso, responding in accordance. With wide eyes, Crow watched the hulking beast be pulled down and forced to the ground with but a gesture, its hulking head slamming into the rocks below. It screamed and struggled, but it could not fight the absolute grip. What happened next Crow would never forget for as long as he lived. The same could go for them too. What if RWBY is watching Naruto Memories? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.